F1 on BBC Radio 5 Sports Extra.
From the Middle East to the Far East, America and Europe, we now head into the final leg of the longest season in Formula One history. 3 sprints and 7 races to go. And to kick things off, we arrive back in Singapore for the 15th time to race 62 laps around the Marina Bay Street Circuit. The sun has set here, local time 7:45 in the evening, as the lights illuminate this tight and twisty street track that sits in the shadow of the Marina Bay Sands Resort with its 150-metre long infinity pool on the roof, as the Singapore Flyer Ferris wheel, standing tall at over 540 feet, lights up, providing some spectacular views for the fans that fill up the grandstands around this 4.9-kilometre track. And over the course of the next couple of hours, we'll be bringing you all the action around the streets of Singapore. And to do that, alongside myself, Harry Benjamin is the McLaren Formula E driver and a man who has been victorious around these Singaporean streets back in his GP2 days, Sam Bird. Sam, Singapore, it's a favourite for us fans, but it is a challenging, tough track for the drivers.
It is challenging indeed, Harry.
And only the best win.
Oh yes, no, it's a very, very difficult circuit to negotiate. 62 laps in this excruciating heat. The drivers will lose kilo upon kilo of body sweat over the course of this evening's race, and I can't wait to see how it pans out.
Yeah, you can lose, well, as one of the most physical races, drivers can lose between 3 and 5 kilos of body weight, and that is a huge one. So having to recover from that in the first place, but make sure you've taken on enough fluid and liquid and electrolytes in the build-up to this weekend to withstand the temperatures, which stand at around, air temperature at least, 30.6 degrees Celsius, track temperature 37.2 degrees Celsius, but it's the humidity as well. It's just creeping over 75% humidity and approaching 80%. So George Russell actually described it really well earlier on. He said it's like being locked in a sauna, and the temperature just keeping getting turned up and up. So that just hopefully gives you an idea of how hot it can get around the streets of Singapore. But who are we watching out for then, Sam Bird? Who is the man or the team to beat this evening?
Well, we're staring at him right now. Lando Norris starting on pole position. Can he convert that into a win? Can he lead at the end of lap 1? Something that he's been unable to do for all of this season, actually. All of his pole positions, he's not been able to convert that into leading. But my money's on Lando, obviously, being a McLaren driver. I'd dearly love to see him win, but Max Verstappen is going to be gunning for him.
He certainly will. Well, let's head down to the grid. With us is Rosanna Tennant.
Oh, Harry, it's a busy grid, and as you said, it's hot and humid in Singapore, so it makes for a very sweaty experience down on the grid. But the fans are here in their thousands. They are in the grandstands. I'm down on the grid. As I look towards the first corner, I look to my right. The stands are full. The fans are on their feet with all their phones in the air, trying to get a picture of their favourite driver in the cars. And as I look out, I have to say I can see a lot of papaya orange, a lot of McLaren fans here this weekend, hoping to see their man, Lando Norris, and maybe even Oscar Piastri, do something special under the lights. And as you can hear, the music is blaring, so there's quite a party atmosphere here as well. Always a special one, this. A night race, super exciting, and I think there's a real excitement in the air that something good is coming Lando Norris's way this evening. But, of course, he lines up alongside Max Verstappen on the front row.
Yeah, he does indeed. It's the 2 championship protagonists on that front row, but it's Lando Norris with the advantage of pole position. He is chasing down a 59-point gap. Let's hear how he's feeling. He's speaking with Lawrence Barretto.
Well, Lando, you had 1 lap to get the job done yesterday qualifying, and you did it. You smashed it out of the park to get pole. Just how satisfying was it to do it under all of that pressure?
Yeah, no, yesterday was a good day for us. I did everything I needed to do. The car's been fantastic all weekend, so it's always difficult around here no matter what. But I'm excited for today. It's not going to be an easy race, but excited to see what we can do.
You were talking yesterday about feeling super connected with the car. You haven't made many tweaks with the car this weekend. Just how critical is that when you're building confidence, say, going into this race? Because it's a long one, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you need a good car, but you also you still have to drive it well. You know, and I feel like I've been on top of my driving this weekend, and I feel like I've been comfortable with the car, and that's always a good combination of things. So Yes, it's important, especially when you need to look after the tyres and you need to be quick and look after the tyres at the same time. It's always a difficult combination of things to get right, but I feel like we can do it this weekend and we can do it today. So just get my head down and go from there.
Just one final question. You obviously got your friend and title rival alongside. You've got the Mercedes, which is maybe a bit of a surprise behind you. How much of a threat are they? Because the pack's been so tight, isn't it, up front?
Yeah, I mean, it's not for me to control, is it? You know, I focus on myself and, like I said, get my head down. But it would be nice if they battled a little bit and let me get away a touch. But I don't really expect much. I think they're still going to be quick. But they've had more difficulties and troubles this weekend comparing to us. So, I'll stick to my own game plan and just go from there.
Best of luck out there. Thanks, Lando. Thank you.
Lando Norris talking to Lawrence Barretto. Norris is on pole, starting behind him with Max Verstappen for Red Bull. Let's hear from the team principal of Red Bull, Christian Horner, speaking with Rosanna.
Christian, front row. I don't know about you, but I was a little bit surprised to see Max Verstappen there yesterday in qualifying. Or were you?
Yeah, I think we all were. I mean, where we were on Friday, we were in the in a corner, and I think the team did a great job in giving Max a better car yesterday, and then he delivered 2 amazing laps. So let's see if he can use it today.
A surprise in quali. Is it going to be a surprise in the race then? Do you think you can hold this position or even maybe take the race win this evening?
Well, look, I mean, let's see if we can get a good start and good first lap.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Well, it certainly was a bit of a surprise for Red Bull, and for Max Verstappen, it's his first front row start since his home Grand Prix in the Netherlands. Let's hear what he has to say about starting second.
Max, well, you were in a world of pain at the start of the weekend, but you turned it around in a massive way to get the front row today. Just how surprised were you to having an empty track in front of you for the start of today's race?
Yeah, it was a good turnaround, you know, so I'm happy with that. And I hope we can have a strong race today. It's going to be for sure a long and tough race for everyone. But I hope that we have a good race car.
You've got your friend, your title rider alongside you. You've got some fast Ferraris, McLarens, Mercedes behind you. Just how hard is it going to be to really be in the fight for that win today?
Yeah, let's see. I mean, it's always very difficult to judge where we'll be in the race, but I'm confident that we can have a good one.
Tyre temperature's been a massive topic this weekend. From your perspective, did it really feel like you'd built some rhythm and understanding and comfort with the car on that side?
I think we did the best we could with the information that we got from the long runs as well. So we'll just go in there and try to have a good race, and of course I hope to put a bit of pressure on.
Now Verstappen then starts second behind Lando Norris. You've heard from both of them now, Sam, but the stat goes against Lando Norris. He's failed to lead an opening lap in his 5 pole positions. Does that weigh on you as a driver? How can you get the perfect start? What's he thinking about in the build-up, looking down to turn 1?
The amount of pole positions that Lando Norris has had over his career, not only in Formula 1 but in junior formulas as well. I think we make more of it than what he will think of it, to be honest. Also, interestingly, Harry, we watched a clip of Max Verstappen doing a practice start out of the pit lane, and it didn't look very good. The rear of the car was bucking and bouncing around underneath him. I'm not sure whether they've got that start procedure nailed down at Red Bull, ready for this Grand Prix.
Well, also, it was not a great practice start for Lando Norris either. Struggled with a bit of throttle application. But let's head back down to Rosanna.
Just a quick one with Toto Wolff, team principal at Mercedes. Second row for you guys. That must have been a really rewarding qualifying session.
Yeah, it's a good position to start. Let's see what we can do from here.
Good luck. I've got to go because I've got to get off the grid, Harry.
Run, Rosanna, run. We'll catch up with you in a little while. So just hearing there from the team principal of Mercedes, Toto Wolff. Now, Mercedes, if we just look past the front row, they lock out the second row. That was a surprise for them, for us. Hamilton himself starts ahead of Russell. We haven't said that too many times this year. Indeed, he said qualifying has been his disaster all year long. What are you expecting and hoping for Mercedes this year, this weekend?
What am I expecting from Mercedes? I don't know, Harry. I don't know what their race pace is going to be like. I don't know what their tyre deck is going to be like. They're a little bit of an unknown going into this Grand Prix. What I would say, though, is that the 2 red cars behind should be with them probably by the pit stop, I can imagine, and we're going to have a heck of a fight, I think, this afternoon between Mercedes and Ferrari.
Well, they will start third and fourth, Hamilton and Russell. We've spoken to Lando Norris, who starts on pole. His teammate Oscar Piastri, though, down in fifth. We've heard a lot about team orders and how that will play out across these last 7 races. It's Norris the man in the hunt for the Drivers' Championship. So let's hear what the big boss has to say at McLaren.
I'm with McLaren CEO Zach Brown. Well, congratulations on the pole position yesterday. Another one in the bag for you guys. But as you know, that's half the job done. Can you finish it this evening?
That's the plan. We want to get Oscar up here as well. I think he's faster than he qualified. Small mistake in Q3. Lando's been on fire all week, and I feel like I'm on fire because it's pretty hot here. But yeah, no, we got 2 good race cars, so I think as long as it's a clean race, it should be a good race for us.
And maybe a little bit surprising that it was Max Verstappen alongside Lando on the front row. If Verstappen does get the lead, are you worried at all that you'll be able to get it back again?
Well, I'm always worried. No matter where we are on the track. But I think we've got good race pace. I was expecting the Ferraris to be a little bit quicker, but maybe they would have been. But Carlos also had his accident, and Charles lost his lap, so I expect them to come forward. And then, of course, Max is Max, so he'll be tough.
Good luck this evening.
Thank you.
Zach Brown, CEO of McLaren, talking to Rosanna Tennant for us. Well, we're getting closer and closer to lights out for the Singapore Grand Prix in just under 4 minutes' time. Sam, you mentioned the red cars might well make their way up through the grid, and that's because, well, Charles Leclerc's down in 9th, Carlos Sainz in 10th. Ferrari were coming into this weekend as one of the favourites, but yesterday was a disaster for both of them for different reasons.
Yeah, absolutely. Charles Leclerc lost his lap in qualifying due to track limits at turn 1. The lap wasn't the best anyway, would have put him just behind Nico Hülkenberg, so he hasn't lost too much there. I think that they will be going forward, but Carlos Sainz had a dramatic crash in Q3, at the beginning of Q3, where after warming up his tyres, slowed down to let Oscar Piastri through, and then shunted it on the exit of the final corner, about to start his first push lap. But I do expect both of the red cars to make their way forwards.
They will need to as well, because it is a 3-way fight in the Constructors' Championship. Ferrari third. They're only 31 points behind McLaren, who now lead it, so they will need and hope that both Leclerc and Sainz can claw their way up through the field and score some big points. Just outside of the top 10 lie the 2 Williams cars, Alex Albon and Franco Colapinto, for his 3rd Grand Prix. Indeed, both Williams drivers actually disappointed not to make it into the top 10. Let's hear from their team principal, James Vowles.
I'm with team principal of Williams, James Vowles. James, just outside the points currently, but are you confident you can get both cars into the points this evening?
I mean, confident would be a strong word. Here's what I can say. We as a team didn't do a good enough job yesterday in qualifying 3. That's on us. The drivers did really great, but we didn't have the tyres working. So if they've been working, I think getting into Q3 already would have been possible. Our long run on Friday was better than Hülkenberg. It was better than Fernando, so it bodes well. But when you're slightly out of position in Singapore, it's hard to predict what's going to happen.
Is it going to come down to strategy this evening? How difficult has it been making your choice on tyres?
Yeah, it's typically here, it's not about the start. The one into turn 1 isn't huge. So this one is about 2 things. Globally, the strategy and the safety cars. There's been one most years, and it normally turns the race on its head. So let's see.
Good luck this evening.
Thank you.
Sam, how impressed have you been so far with Franco Colapinto, the Argentine driver, only in his, well, this will be his 3rd Grand Prix, of course, a brilliant points position in Baku, and the Williams team in general seem to have made a step forward.
I think he stepped in and done a really solid job, Harry. I didn't know what to expect when he came in. I didn't expect that he'd do any better than Logan Sargent, if I'm brutally honest, but he surprised me. I think he surprised a lot of people, and he's done a really competent job early on in his Formula 1 career.
It was only 7,000ths of a second behind Alex Albon at the end of qualifying. Both start on the edges of 11th and 12th, just outside of the top 10. Right then, we're just a few more minutes away from the formation lap. Let's head back down to Rosanna.
And it was a bit of a scramble getting off the grid. So hot and sweaty. The mechanics pushing all the kit off the grid so that they are ready if something happens on that first lap. Of course, it could well do. It's a short run down to the first turn, 178 metres, so we've all got to be ready for anything. Harry, this is going to be an exciting Grand Prix. Over to you.
Yeah, we're nearly set then for the 18th race of the season. Can Lando Norris get a good start and close down the gap to Max Verstappen in the Drivers' Championship? What can Lewis Hamilton do from 3rd? The 2 Ferraris start out of position position. Will they be able to cut through the pack? And what about safety car intervention? We haven't seen one in 8 races this season. Will that play a factor? It's time to get all those questions answered. It's time for the Singapore Grand Prix. Starting on pole position, his 5th pole of the season, it's Lando Norris for McLaren. Alongside him is championship protagonist Max Verstappen, who leads the title charge, 2nd on the grid, ahead of the 2 Mercedes who lock out the 2nd row. Hamilton ahead of Russell. Oscar Piastri rounds out the top 5, ahead of a season best start, well, he equals it in 6th for Nico Hülkenberg, ahead of the Aston Martin of Fernando Alonso. Yuki Tsunoda is 8th, then come the 2 Ferraris of Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz. Alex Albon and Franco Colapinto, the 2 Williams drivers, 11th and 12th, ahead of Sergio Perez, the 5th time he's not made it through into Q3. He starts down in 13th in front of a returning Kevin Magnussen in the Haas, 14th ahead of Ocon in the Alpine for 15th. Daniel Ricciardo is 16th for RB, ahead of Lance Stroll in the Aston Martin. Then comes Pierre Gasly in the Alpine, Valtteri Bottas and Zhou Guanyu, the 2 Sauber drivers, rounding out the grid in 19th and 20th. The lights illuminate this Marina Bay street circuit as the cars make their way around on the formation lap, weaving left and right, trying to get the tyres and the brakes up to temperature. But tyres, so crucial in every race we come to. Expected to be a one-stop strategy here. Let's check in with what the tyres are saying, Rosanna.
Well, we were wondering whether Max Verstappen might choose the soft tyre to get the jump on Lando Norris this evening, but he hasn't, as have all the other top 10, apart from Lewis Hamilton. Max Verstappen, he's gone for the medium tyre. So Lewis Hamilton obviously hoping he could maybe make a place or 2 and take the lead on that soft tyre. The other driver to go for the softs is Daniel Ricciardo. He's starting from down in P16, and could this be his last Grand Prix in Formula 1? He gave a handshake to one of the team members as he went to his car with a knowing look, and it looked a little bit like this could be the end for Daniel Ricciardo. We'll obviously have to keep you posted on that one.
We shall indeed. Liam Lawson waiting in the wings for a seat in Formula 1, but if it is his last race, let's hope he goes out in style, but still no news on that yet. Now, interesting to pick up on what the tyre situation was, Sam. You spotted it earlier. Lewis Hamilton will start on that soft tyre. Gives him a better start off the line?
It will give him a better launch on the line. It is a very short distance between the start line and turn 1. Need to see if he can get that traction, try and gain a place on Max Verstappen. But obviously that means that he's going to be pitting early compared to his rivals. That means that he'll be probably under threat come the end of the race.
Just bring you up with how the driver standing is. It's 59 points between Verstappen and Lando Norris. Then comes Charles Leclerc, Oscar Piastri and Carlos Sainz are the top 5 in the driver standings. And over in the Constructors' Championship, it is a 3-way fight. McLaren now lead the way, having taken over from Red Bull at the end of last weekend's Azerbaijan Grand Prix. They have a 20-point lead ahead of Red Bull. Then come Ferrari in 3rd, Mercedes and Aston Martin on their lonesome in 4th and 5th. And then there's a huge battle in the midfield between RB, Haas, Williams and Alpine, scrapping it out for quite literally millions of dollars come the end of the season. And Sauber, the only team yet to get off the mark with 0 points as they start to line up in their grid spots. The mechanics in the garage already starting to sweat. A team sport this, the pit stops will be crucial. Can a safety car play a factor here? On the back row then, we will see the 2 Saubers of Valtteri Bottas in 19th, ahead of Zhou Guanyu as they take their final slots on the grid. We'll have 62 laps ahead of us of intense racing, around 4.9 kilometers, just over 3 miles across this Marina Bay street circuit in Singapore. Round 18, on pole position it's Lando Norris, alongside him is Verstappen. It's all eyes to the lights and foot to the floor as we go racing under the lights in Singapore. And it's a poor start for Verstappen, it's a good start for Lando Norris, who holds the lead. Hamilton trying his way round the outside of Verstappen. There's almost contact, and Aston Martin and the Ferrari have to take to the escape road further back. It was Charles Leclerc who rejoins ahead of his teammate Carlos Sainz, but it's a good start for Lando Norris in the McLaren, and then Max Verstappen has managed to just about hold on to 2nd place.
Hulkenberg up to 5th, Harry. Hulkenberg's had a flyer and ahead of Oscar Piastri, but will he be able to hold it down into turn 7? No, Oscar Piastri's back through into 5th place.
Down the inside for Oscar Piastri, manages to make the move on the Haas driver who slots in behind. He's got Fernando Alonso as Hulkenberg right up behind him. It's Norris, Verstappen, Hamilton, Russell. Then comes Oscar Piastri, the top 5. Lewis Hamilton now just starting to fall back slightly from Max Verstappen as they make their way through the left-hander. Carlos Sainz, though, has got a lot of cars in front of him. Sainz losing positions. He's actually lost position to Yuki Tsunoda and Franco Colapinto, who finds himself up inside the top 10. So a good start from the Williams driver, trying to keep the RB and the Ferrari at bay.
Alex Albon has also had a bad start. He finds himself down in 15th. So contrasting fortunes on lap 1 for the Williams drivers.
Certainly is, but looked like everybody made their way through fairly safely. A couple of cars running wide. I think it must have been Albon, the other car with Charles Leclerc, who ran wide on the exit of turn 1. And there is a format you have to follow there. There's an arrow pointing of where you can safely rejoin. If you don't, you do get noted by the stewards. As we round then the final 2 corners of lap 1 of 62 for the Singapore Grand Prix. It is Lando Norris who leads as the drag reduction system is enabled. Verstappen 2nd, Hamilton 3rd, then comes Russell, Piastri's 5th, Hulkenberg 6th, Alonso 7th, then Charles Leclerc is 8th, Colapinto's up to 9th, Sergio Perez with a decent start as well, up from 13th on the grid to 10th, then comes Tsunoda in 11th, he's lost places along with Sainz in 12th, Ocon's made gains up into 13th, then comes Magnussen, Albon down to 15th, Ricciardo is where he started in 16th, Gasly is 17th ahead of Stroll, and the 2 Saubers, Bottas ahead of Joe, 19th and 20th.
We could be in for a great fight this evening, Harry, between Max Verstappen and Lando Norris. They're already gapping the 2 Mercedes cars. 2.6 seconds back is Lewis Hamilton from Lando Norris already. I think this could be a 2-horse fight.
It does seem that way. Verstappen just on the edges of that 1 second march. His teammate, meanwhile, is trying to find a way past the Argentine rookie of Franco Colapinto in the Williams only. In his 3rd ever Grand Prix, has made great gains up into 9th, looking for back-to-back point-scoring finishes for Colapinto. Long way to go in this race, though. Expecting it to be a one-stop strategy, but a safety car, will that play a factor too? We've seen at least one in every single iteration of the Singapore Grand Prix, but indeed, in the last 8 races of the season, we haven't had any. George Russell having a little look down. His teammate Lewis Hamilton in the run down to turn 16. Not close enough, but there's a tyre disparity here too, Sam.
Absolutely. So Lewis is going to be using up those soft tyres, trying to keep on the back of Max Verstappen. That'll play into the hands of George Russell come about lap 8, 9, 10. Expect to see George Russell making his way forwards and potentially passing his illustrious teammate.
Yeah, for those on that medium tyre, we're expecting them to go to around lap 21 to 27 before switching possibly onto the hard tyre. That's the main strategy here. But Lewis Hamilton starting on the soft. Well, how far can he eke that out and still have pace? He's got his teammate within a second, which means he'll get the DRS activation. Currently 3rd and 4th. I tell you what, though, Oscar Piastri has not been able to shake off Nico Hulkenberg. Piastri managed to regain that place on lap 1 up into 5th, but Hulkenberg's still right there with him in the Haas.
Yeah, I think Hulkenberg is having to drive the wheels off his Haas, though, to stay with Piastri. Piastri, we know that McLaren is very, very kind on its tyres and can come alive at the end of a stint. I can imagine he's been told, look, stay there, wait for the others to fade away, and then you can come to life at the end of the stint.
Quite possibly. So it is Norris who leads by 1.5 seconds ahead of Verstappen. Then comes Hamilton, Russell and Piastri. That's the top 5. Nice battle brewing just outside of the point scoring positions for the time being for Yuki Tsunoda in 11th against Carlos Sainz. Then not far behind is Ocon.
But he needs to increase the pace a bit as the guys at the front are getting away.
That was George Russell urging the team to tell Hamilton to increase the pace, but also is that a bit of code of I'm faster, can you let me through please?
That's always what you do with a teammate, isn't it? Whenever you've got a teammate in front, you're always complaining, oh, I'm a bit quicker than him, let me through. I don't think Lewis is too far back at the moment for Max to really be saying that on lap 4 of the Grand Prix, but time will tell.
Time will tell. Lap 4 of 62 for the Singapore Grand Prix. 1.4 seconds the gap between Norris and Verstappen. Hamilton then a little further adrift, so the front two are starting to eke away a bit. Closest battles are happening in the midfield. Carlos Sainz in 12th, the man who put it on pole here last year and won the race in dramatic style too. Losing positions, crashed out in qualifying, meant he started in 10th. Bad opening lap for the Spanish racer, down in 12th, stuck behind the RB of Yuki Tsunoda, who will be equally frustrated, having had a wonderful top 8 start, his first top 8 start in a Grand Prix since Canada. As we're now going to get a little look at the start, Sam, and it was a good launch from Lando Norris, and it was Verstappen with a little bit of a slower launch.
It was a great launch from Lando Norris. Just watching a little bit further back, looking at Alexander Albon, got really caught out and then had a slide. Oh, did he no, he had to rejoin. He was the Williams on the outside. That's what cost him a lot. He was a little bit indecisive with what he should do when he went wide in turn 1.
We're just now having a look back at Nico Hülkenberg's Haas, who made a great start initially, had the inside line going down into turn 1. And it was the Alonso Aston Martin who had a moment too, going out wide. So it was Leclerc, it was Sainz, Albon and Alonso who all had to take to the runoff, and it got so close between Verstappen and Hamilton too, going down into turn 1.
What's he doing?
I mean, it all got very, very tight and tense, didn't it, at the back end of the top 10, but everybody managed to get round. We're seeing a replay now of Carlos Sainz going wide on the exit at turn 7, and that cost him the position to to Sergio Perez.
And then Perez had the inside line, and Perez managed to get 2 drivers in the space of 1 corner, then making his way down towards the short straight with the old Singapore Sling, then managed to get the RB driver of Yuki Tsunoda. So it was optimism from Sergio Perez making that move stick, and having lost a place on the opening lap for Oscar Piastri to Nico Hülkenberg in the run down to turn 7, late on the brakes down the inside, managed to get the Haas driver again.
Yeah, I think Nico Hülkenberg knows that his fight this afternoon is not with Oscar Piastri. His fight is trying to keep Fernando Alonso at bay, who sits just under a second behind the rear wing of his car.
Certainly as well, right now, if Hülkenberg can hold on to that 6th place finish, that would see Haas go ahead of RB in the constructors fight. So he'll be just wanting to hold on to that position for as long as he can. Lap 5 of 62 under the lights for the Singapore Grand Prix, round 18 of the Formula 1 World Championship. It's Lando Norris who leads from pole position, starting to eke out his gap slightly to Max Verstappen, the 2 championship rivals. Verstappen though crossing the line and setting the fastest lap, so still keeping within 2 seconds of Norris. Then it's another few seconds back to Lewis Hamilton, who is on the soft tyre. Russell, his teammate, on the medium tyre behind, been urging the Mercedes team to try and get Hamilton to increase his pace, or perhaps make the case for Russell to find a way through. Piastri's 5th, Hülkenberg 6th, then Alonso. Charles Leclerc is 8th. That's the sound you can hear right now. He's just ahead of Colapinto, and Perez rounds out the top 10.
Out front, Lando Norris leads by 1.6 seconds, but Max Verstappen has just taken a couple of tenths out of him on the last lap and done the fastest lap of the race. Both those 2 drivers, though, are pulling away now from the 2 Mercedes.
Through the right-hander of turn 8 for Charles Leclerc, who is looking at the back of Fernando Alonso as they then make their way through the left-hander of turn 9, down the short burst towards the braking zone of turn 10. A light touch on the brakes, arc your way through the left-hander, then quickly a slight notch to the right before you're heading left again over the Anderson Bridge and into the braking zone, slightly offline, going into the left-hander of turn 13, up through the gears, gentle on the throttle as you head down to Esplanade Drive towards the right-hander of turn 14. And this is the site of the new DRS zone, a 4th added DRS zone for this year, 400 metres straight along towards turn 16. As Carlos Sainz is told on the radio, we are going for plan A, despite losing positions on the first lap. So I would deduce perhaps that plan A would be your traditional one-stop strategy for Carlos Sainz.
I don't see any other plan right now, seeing as that there's no safety car in sight. I think everybody's planning on doing a one-stop, even the likes of Lewis Hamilton, who sits in 3rd place right now on the soft tyre. He would be looking to go soft and then to the hard tyre.
Still holding firm at the moment. Last lap around for Lewis Hamilton was a 1:38.2, Russell a 1:38.3. The only other man on the soft tyre is Daniel Ricciardo, all the way down in 16th place. He's not been able to utilise that tyre and make gains in what could be Daniel Ricciardo's final race as a Formula One driver. Rumours amidst this week that he will be replaced post-Singapore by Liam Lawson, or at least an announcement might well be in the beckoning for Lawson for a seat next year. We wait to see how that one will play out. Here's Leclerc.
I took a carbon part on my left side. Car looks fine.
So car looks fine. That's the response for Charles Leclerc, saying he thinks he might have taken a bit of debris and a hit to the left-hand side of his Ferrari as he makes his way over the Anderson Bridge, still chasing down Fernando Alonso, and that is a man you really don't want to be stuck behind at any track, let alone a street circuit. He's very good at holding people up.
He is. He's a wily old fox, isn't he? He can certainly hold people up, and he can certainly attack people when he needs to as well. I'd say everybody's behaving themselves at the moment. The gaps are all around about just under a second at the moment in the mid-pack. Nobody really close enough to challenge, and nobody really making any moves. It's kind of like everybody's waiting to see what the degradation's like on these medium tyres.
Those are the hard tyre, much further back. Kevin Magnussen in 14th. He's got Alex Albon right behind him. Stroll, Joe and Bottas, the other runners on the hard, and they're all 18th, 19th and 20th. They're hoping to go as far into this race as possible before perhaps making use of a cheap pit stop under a safety car. A traditional pit loss around here is between 28 to 30 seconds, depending on how quick your stop is. It's still the longest of the year by some margin, so it is crucial when it comes to strategy in making sure you can certainly pitch your pit stop time correctly. No pit stops yet. Last year a safety car came out at around about the lap 20 mark. We're on lap 8 at the moment. Lando Norris leads by 2.1 seconds now, just edging that gap over Max Verstappen. Hamilton and Russell 3rd and 4th. Piastri's holding firm in 5th ahead of Nico Hülkenberg, so far running a fantastic race for the Haas team ahead of Alonso. Then comes Charles Leclerc. Franco Colapinto with a good start, perhaps too good of a start if you ask his teammate Alex Albon. Colapinto up to 9th. Perez rounds out the top 10. Sonoda is chasing him though in the RB in 11th. Then comes Carlos Sainz. That's the sound you can hear right now. Ocon is 13th ahead of Magnussen and Albon after running out wide at turn 1 for Albon, losing positions down to 15th ahead of Ricciardo. Then it's Gasly, Stroll, Joe and Bottas, the 20 drivers, all still in this race, as Norris now really is visibly to us starting to open up a gap.
Hello, how's the pace? Yeah, pace 6 or something.
Okay, in which case we'd like to use a bit of that pace to try and get a 5-second gap to Max if possible by the mid-teens.
So, if he's got more pace, please use it. That is the message from McLaren. The gap is 2.8 seconds. They want it around the 5-second mark. Why do they say it as pace 6, though? Is that McLaren code? Are we papaya rules all of a sudden again?
Maybe they use a scale of 1 to 10, and 10 being he's flat out, 6 being he's, not pushing, but not conserving too much, kind of mid-range. I think that they want to get a 5-second gap because they want to be able to cover Max in case he tries an undercut.
Lap 9 of 62 of the Singapore Grand Prix, and there are a couple of fights a little further back that are shaping up quite nicely. First of which is Carlos Sainz, currently in 12th, still all over the back, within half a second of Yuki Tsunoda as they break for the left-hander of turn 10, and then it's almost like you're threading the needle through 11 and 12.
You can see it, Colapinto is struggling. Let's have a...
That's Perez's radio. You can see Colapinto is struggling, so they want to pounce on Colapinto. That's the Williams driver in 9th. Then comes Perez in 10th, and then the RB of Tsunoda and Sainz battling it out. 9th, 10th, 11th and 12th, all in fairly close quarters with each other on the racetrack. Lap 10 of 62. Let's head down to Rosanna Tennant.
I was interested, Harry, hearing Lando Norris sounding pretty calm and collected on the radio with pace 6. If indeed that is perhaps 6 out of 10, that is ominous for the rest of the field, because he's already got that 3 and a bit second gap to Max Verstappen, and they're asking him to pull it out to a 5 second as he just sets the fastest lap again, going even quicker with a 1:36.7. So he's obviously got pace in hand. So this race is going to come down to a bit of tyre management and maybe some very long stints if the tyres aren't too bad this evening, and better than perhaps they feared.
Yeah, well, he's now up to 4.1 seconds, the gap, Norris, between Verstappen, as Verstappen's teammate just has a little moment coming down Raffles Boulevard out of turn 5. DRS zone closes up, under braking for the left-hander of turn 7 behind the Williams of Franco Colapinto, who started down in 12th with a bold opening lap, has made his way up to 9th.
Oscar looks like plan B at the moment. Plan B. Copy.
Plan B for Oscar Piastri potentially. Is he a little bit stuck then behind George Russell in 5th? What would plan B possibly entail, Sam?
I'm not in those team meetings. I wish I knew what plan B was right now, Harry, but it's proving very tricky this evening, isn't it, to get any overtakes done. Since the first lap, we haven't really seen any movement, and people like Oscar Piastri, who may feel that they're a little bit out of place at the moment from where they should be with regards to the pace of their car, they might need to try something that little bit different.
Colapinto is under pressure here. Sergio Perez has a little look down the inside towards the right-hander of turn 17. Quick flick through 18, short straight towards the final couple of corners. The double left-handers that see off this track. Closing for Sergio Perez, but he still just can't get close enough to Colapinto.
And Magnussen reporting hard seems worse than medium competitors.
I think Perez might be in with a sniff of getting him into turn 7 if he has a good look through turn 5. Oh, Colapinto stretched out with traction as we see our first pitter of the evening, which is
Daniel Ricciardo in the RB, who started on the soft tyre. Now this was a little bit earlier than we were expecting, but nothing to lose for Daniel Ricciardo. Quick pit stop. Well, actually it's not, slightly slow on the rear right, puts the medium tyre on. We just heard on the radio as well Charles Leclerc's engineer telling him they're monitoring Magnussen's pace on the hard, and Magnussen reporting that the hard is actually worse than they expected it to be in the race. But Ricciardo out and feeds out just ahead of Valtteri Bottas, but he's the first one to come into the pit to get rid of his soft tyre, puts on the medium tyre. Rosanna.
Well, that's interesting, isn't it? Daniel Ricciardo was on that soft tyre. He's already come in after 11 laps. Are we going to see Lewis Hamilton coming in then? He's the other soft tyre runner. Could he have to come in early, and therefore, as we stop for Tsunoda?
Colapinto are fighting. There could be something coming to us. Let's be on it.
Too much information.
Too much information for Yuki Tsunoda, who's being told Perez and Colapinto are fighting. That's just ahead of him, so perhaps to just look out for maybe an opportunity or two for Yuki Tsunoda to get himself back up into the points, Rosanna.
Yeah, so it's an interesting question. Will Lewis Hamilton have to come in fairly soon, and would that then remove a little bit of a headache for Mercedes? We've already heard George Russell on the radio saying that Lewis Hamilton needed to go faster because the first two drivers, Lando Norris and Max Verstappen, were cantering off into the distance. So, could this be an interesting one? Might this not go Lewis Hamilton's way? That soft tyre, really, it was all about the start, wasn't it, guys? But he wasn't able to make a move, and neither was Daniel Ricciardo, actually. So the medium tyre, definitely the one to come in on, as we've now got Alex Albon into the pits. He comes into his pit box, up on the jacks, and I think it's a hard tyre for him. Yes, he has got rid of that medium tyre, and he's out back into the fast lane.
Tell you who is in the fast lane at the moment, and that is Lando Norris, who is disappearing at the front of the field, now 6.2 seconds away from Max Verstappen.
It is so far. Rosanna said, well, Verstappen and Norris are eking away at the front. Norris is the one who is easily been able to turn up the wick and find over 5 seconds now, indeed 5.7 seconds the gap, 6.5 seconds the gap between himself and Lando Norris. He was told to up it to around about the 5 second mark. He's done that and gone quicker. Norris is absolutely flying around the streets of Singapore right now. Verstappen is 6.7 seconds back. Hamilton a further 5 seconds back, still on that soft tyre. Then comes Russell and Piastri. We heard Yuki Tsunoda's radio a few moments ago. Let's hear Kevin Magnussen's.
I'm sliding around like hell.
Magnussen, who started on the hard tyre, not happy out there, down in 14th. Now Tsunoda was told to keep a lookout ahead of him because Perez and Colapinto were fighting, but actually Tsunoda's got to look in his mirrors because Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari is all over the back of the Japanese driver as they make their way around the final corner, down the start-finish straight. DRS for Carlos Sainz, but he can't get close enough to have a look down the inside, has to tuck in back behind. Tsunoda 11th, Sainz 12th, and Perez still behind Colapinto for 9th and 10th.
Everybody's just getting stuck in the dirty air. It's such a tricky thing to do, to kind of get within that 3-4 tenths of a second and then get into that DRS zone. Everybody's stuck at around 8-9 tenths. It's too far back to make a move and too risky around the streets of Singapore.
Carlos Sainz down through the gears into the left-hander of turn 7. Don't run out wide. He did have a moment there on lap 1 as an exit curve waiting to pitch you up into the air and make you lose all contact patch with the tarmac. Manages to hold it together, closes up through the corners, but then just can't seem to get Tsunoda out of in the traction zones and on the straights.
No, but Tsunoda looks like he's missing a couple of apexes. That he doesn't look comfortable out there. The other driver that doesn't look completely comfortable is Colapinto, who's under an awful lot of pressure from Sergio Perez. He's driving so close to the walls. Everybody else is getting a little bit more margin than Colapinto.
Colapinto, who has been pushing since FP1, really getting super close to the walls, especially on the exit of turn 16 at the moment, holding on to 9th, but indeed now has about 1.1 seconds ahead of Perez. So as Perez just backed off slightly to try and get out of the dirty air, we shall see. That is a factor that is coming back into play into Formula One at the moment. Sainz is told to pit for Ferrari. It's lap 14 of 62. Norris now leads by 8 seconds, but into the pits, Rosanna, comes the Ferrari of Sainz.
And Carlos Sainz obviously wants to get rid of that medium tyre. I was really interested by Kevin Magnussen's radio saying that the hard was sliding all over the place. So Sainz wants to get rid of his mediums now, 14 laps down, and they're going to put that hard tyre on to the Ferrari. Is that the right tyre? Is this going to be a bit of a headache now for the medium tyre runners? They're even going to have to extend the stint way longer than perhaps they wanted to, or they're going to have to change onto that hard tyre, which Kevin Magnussen's already been complaining about.
Yeah, Magnussen, well, gets a promotion up to 13th with Sainz pitting. Sainz will come out just ahead of the Williams.
Undercut power looks strong, maybe 2 seconds.
Okay.
That's the undercut power looking strong, perhaps 2 seconds. That's what Lando Norris is being told. Carlos Sainz feeds out just ahead of the Williams of Alex Albon, down in 18th and 19th. So that kind of identifies how strong an undercut can be. Sam, can you just explain what Will Joseph, the man on the radio talking to Lando Norris, was meaning by the undercut being powerful?
So if you pit earlier than your competitor that you're immediately racing against, you then pit and get new tyres, presumably on whatever compound that the engineer and yourself have chosen. That'll give you a potential pace advantage while someone else is running on more used tyres. You could potentially then drive faster. When they then pit, you would then overtake them once they've done their pit stop.
But the ease at which, take example, Lando Norris has been able to almost put 9 seconds ahead of himself and Max Verstappen, an undercut is surely not going to work for Max Verstappen.
No, I mean, Lando's got 5 or 6 laps in the pocket, even if it is a 2-second deficit. So we see a replay of Carlos Sainz coming in the pits. Now, he actually slowed to 52 miles an hour there when the pit limit is 60. So then he's had to drive back up to the speed. It's only fractions, it's only hundredths of a second, but that can be the difference between overtaking and not on a track like Singapore.
2.6 second for Carlos Sainz in the pit, so neat and tidy work from the Ferrari garage. Lap 15 of 62. Lando Norris leads Max Verstappen by 9.5 seconds. Hamilton is third. Then comes Russell and Piastri, the top 5. Nico Hülkenberg in the Haas is riding high up in 6th ahead of Fernando Alonso, who is keeping Charles Leclerc at bay in the Ferrari. The Monegasque driver cannot find a way through. Colapinto is 9th and at times seemed very much under pressure from Perez, but that pressure seems to have just eased off in the last few laps. Perez a couple of seconds back now in 10th. Tsunoda holding on to 11th. Ocon is 12th. Magnussen's out there on the hard tyre in 13th, but struggling. Gasly is 14th ahead of Stroll. The two Saubers 16th and 17th. Joe ahead of Bottas. Sainz, who was pitted and come out in 18th. Ricciardo is down in 20th and last, just behind Alex Albon, who is down in 19th position and was very close to Carlos Sainz when Sainz fed out of the pits a few laps ago.
Lewis Hamilton doing a really strong job on those soft tyres. I didn't expect them to last this long, but he's hanging on to them really well. Russell is 2.4 seconds behind Alex Albon.
He's going slow. I thought it was an error on the graphic screen, but no, Ricciardo is actually ahead of Albon now, because Albon is plumb last, 20th and last, and going slowly, just making his way through the left-hand of turn 13 over the Anderson Bridge. He's still moving, but he has dropped right to the back of the pack. So Alex Albon with an issue.
It's very difficult to find Colapinto. Copy.
Perez saying he's very good. Difficult to pass Colapinto. Well, I think Franco Colapinto needs to add Sergio Perez to his management team to try and get him a drive for next year, because everybody has been talking positively about this Argentine driver who vindicated James Vowles' reasoning straight away for replacing Logan Sargent, scoring points in Baku and scoring more points than Logan Sargent was able to in 2 seasons with the team. Colapinto riding high in 9th at the moment, nearly 2 seconds ahead of Perez. So that pressure Perez was applying, well, Colapinto's managed to hold it off.
He's absorbing it extremely well. Just watching the car attitude of Charles Leclerc, what he's doing is he's driving in a manner that is trying to conserve those rear tyres. He's getting the car stopped, rotated, and getting it in a straight line before exiting, whereas Fernando Alonso in front of him is using everything that he can, trying to keep the minimum speeds up. That will eventually catch up with him and use those rear tyres just that little bit more.
Albon's just come into the pits, so clearly a problem there that might well be terminal for the Williams driver, who had a tough opening lap and found himself out wide through turn 1 and then fell all the way down. Indeed, such a shame for Albon. Was hoping for Singapore to make it 3 consecutive points finishes. That won't be the case, and it will be his 4th DNF of the season as he is wheeled back into the garage. No visible damage to the exterior of the Williams, but perhaps something worse internally for the Thai driver.
I think it was overheating, but maybe Rosanna will find out a little bit more for us in the near future.
Well, we're down to 19 cars then. Ricciardo plumb last, just behind Carlos Sainz, who was pitted in the Ferrari. Both Sainz and Ricciardo the early pitters. Ricciardo wanted to get rid of his soft tyre. He's gone onto the medium, and Sainz getting rid of his medium and going on to the hard. Lewis Hamilton is making his soft tyres hang on for dear life. He's gone 17 laps at the moment. We're expecting, well, you're pushing your tyre at this stage. Between lap 13 and 19, the soft tyre runners might well come in. So let's watch out and see if Hamilton wants to come for the pit lane soon. He's got his teammate behind him, 1.9 seconds. And then comes Oscar Piastri, who's equally kind of stuck in 5th, not really making massive inroads on George Russell. He's just outside the DRS zone of a second to Russell ahead. He's not quick enough to make an undercut work. Hamilton, speak of, he's told to box, Sam.
Yeah, it's about time now for Lewis Hamilton. Nearly 9 seconds adrift of Max Verstappen as he enters the pit lane. What tyre is he going to go on to, though, Harry? I can presume it's going to be the hard.
He comes into the pits and lines up on his marks, manages to hit them, gets hiked up on the jacks. Quick turnaround for the mechanics on each of the wheels, and 2.5 seconds later he is back out into the fast lane, and he's stuck on the white rubbered tyre. That is the white wall tyre, the hard compound tyre. Make that last to the end, Sam?
That's the plan, but now George Russell and Oscar Piastri have got to go now. If they want to try and get this final spot on the podium, they've got to make some moves now, get some fast laps in while Lewis Hamilton is getting these hard tyres up to speed.
Hamilton rejoins the circuit down in 13th spot, just ahead of the Alpine of Pierre Gasly. Anonymous race really for the two Alpine drivers, anonymous weekend for Gasly and Esteban Ocon so far with their struggles over the last couple of Grand Prix. Lap 18, Lando Norris leads Max Verstappen by over 12.5 seconds. Then comes George Russell a further 11 seconds back, and Piastri now is right up behind George Russell. Now is the time, Rosanna, for Russell and Piastri to push. We'll just hear from Leclerc first.
And good job on the brakes.
Yeah, but they react completely differently now.
Leclerc being told good job on the brakes, but he's not liking how they're reacting, getting inconsistent braking, it seems, from Charles Leclerc, who's fallen a little bit further back from Fernando Alonso, down in 7th. I'll tell you what though, this battle for 3rd, once Hamilton has come into the pits now, has suddenly hotted up to within a second Piastri is of Russell. He'll get the DRS round the final corner. Didn't get the best exit, Piastri. He'll still get that rear wing open down towards turn 1, the first of 4 DRS zones. Stamp on the brakes through the left-hander of 2, slightly arc right to 3 before you're straight back left again, out through 4, slightly uphill over the bump, and then you downhill braking through the right-hander of turn 4 as you head down towards Raffles Boulevard, out through 5, the slight right-hander of turn 6 into the braking zone then of 7. He's not close enough on this occasion, but this is a battle that we need to keep an eye on, and is hotting up nicely, Rosanna.
It really is. With this 4th DRS zone, perhaps that zone itself doesn't contribute to making the pass, but the cumulative effect of the 3rd DRS zone and the 4th DRS zone being so close together, that could really help Oscar Piastri now. The overtaking delta, it's 7/10 with DRS, so Piastri needs to stay closer to George Russell. The gap now has just crept over the 2nd mark, so the Australian driver needs to really keep on the gearbox of George Russell. Interestingly, Lewis Hamilton managed to make his tyres last 18 laps. Pirelli predicted 19 for the softs, and in a couple of laps time we should expect the medium runners to come in now, as Carlos Sainz is making moves on that fresh set of hard tyres up to P16 now.
Certainly is making moves. Thanks, Rosanna. Down the inside of Zhou Guanyu for 16th place as Sainz, who pitted, one of the early pit stoppers, trying to claw his way back up the field. Nico Hülkenberg is currently in 5th for the Haas team, qualifying an equal season best of 6th. We last saw him in 6th place back at the British Grand Prix. So an opportunity this evening under the lights for Nico Hülkenberg and Haas to bag some big points. And their closest rivals right now, well, Williams, Colapinto currently in 8th spot, Sonoda in RB currently in 10th. Big fight developing in the midfield, but at the moment Hülkenberg is keeping Alonso and Leclerc at bay as Lewis Hamilton starts his comeback after pitting, has just picked off Kevin Magnussen down the inside of turn 16 and round the final 2 corners he goes up to 7th gear and across the line to start lap 20 of 62. Hamilton now up into 12th. Still no movement yet though from Russell or Piastri and the medium tyre runners at the top of the field, Sam.
No, I think Piastri and Russell need to see Hamilton get held up by the likes of Esteban Ocon at the back end of the top 10. So we see another view of Lewis Hamilton overtaking Kevin Magnussen, nice and easy down the inside, and now he's going to be charging after the back of the Alpine.
Certainly is. Lovely move there. Still hotting up in this midfield pack though. 7/10 of a second between Alonso and Hülkenberg. Charles Leclerc just tucked in behind as they head over the Anderson Bridge, down through the gears, into the braking zone, out through the left-hander, then straight away onto the throttle. Nico Hülkenberg out of the exit of the corner, and you can see his head looking in the right side mirror, just seeing where Alonso and Leclerc are. Hülkenberg driving a fantastic race so far as he makes his way around.
I think I clipped the wall on the way into the plane. I left some.
Hamilton, I think I clipped the wall, so has Hamilton got a bit of contact? As Rosanna, there is movement in the pit lane.
Yeah, I thought the McLaren team were getting ready for a pit stop. A little bit of movement from the mechanics, preparing some tyres. We'll have to keep an eye on that one. And a quick update for you on Alex Albon. They've had to retire his car due to a suspected power unit and cooling issue. They're going to investigate that after the race.
Thanks, Rosanna. Do we have an update on Alex Albon and the Williams?
That's what I just told you, Harry.
Sorry.
Yeah,
you know what, I'll blame producer Joe for that one.
Don't you worry. Yeah, it's a power unit / cooling issue that they are investigating. They're going to do that after the race.
Thanks, Rosanna. Apologies for that. Lap 21 of 62. Norris leads by over 15 seconds, and here is our race leader.
No, for our race, we just want to go as long as possible. So if we need to look after the tyres, we will. We just don't want to be the first person to pit between you and Max.
Okay, so that is the action plan then from Lando Norris and McLaren. They just don't want to be the first one to come into the pits. The gap is just over 15 seconds. Russell third, then comes Piastri in fourth. Hülkenberg is fifth. Down the inside, a little further back in the pack, Carlos Sainz continues his march through, having pitted earlier onto the hard tyre, picks off Lance Stroll down into turn 7. So that's one more position gained. His next target will be Pierre Gasly. Hülkenberg's holding on to fifth ahead of the other Aston Martin of Alonso, Leclerc, Colapinto, Perez and Tsunoda, the top 10, and none of the top 10 have come into the pits yet. Now, Sam, we heard Hamilton on the radio thinking he might have clipped the wall. This is a replay coming into the pit lane through the left-hander as you dart into the pit lane, and actually he hasn't clipped the wall, but he's nearly lost the whole car.
No, he just had a little bit of a snap of oversteer, didn't he, coming in. It's a very tricky braking zone, that. It tightens up and you're braking hard to get down to that 60 km/h pit lane speed limit. No clip of the wall. Lewis Hamilton will be fine. What he won't be fine about is the fact that very soon he's going to be on the back of Esteban Ocon. Now, Ocon and Hamilton will be fighting for position. We know Ocon is stern at defending. Now, he could play into the fight for the podium. If he struggles to overtake Esteban Ocon, George Russell and Oscar Piastri have the potential to pit and potentially overhaul him, but he's now in the DRS zone. Will he get him into turn 7? That Alpine has not been good in a straight line this year.
Indeed, Lando Norris. This has been an absolute walkover so far for the British driver, who got a good start, currently leads by 16.8 seconds. Max Verstappen, his championship rival, with the advantage in the Drivers' Championship, but is nearly 20 seconds back now. This is going so well for Norris and McLaren, but we've still got a long way to go. Lap 23 of 62, and the front runners yet to pit. Indeed, it is lap 23 of 62. Norris 17.2 seconds the gap now to Verstappen. Russell third, Piastri fourth, Hülkenberg fifth, Alonso, Leclerc, Colapinto is eighth ahead of Perez and Tsunoda, the top 10. Hamilton's just picked off Esteban Ocon to get up into 11th. Hamilton has now pitted after running the soft tyre right from the start of this race. Ocon 12th, Magnussen 13th, Gasly and Sainz the top 15. Then comes Stroll, Joe, Bottas and Ricciardo, the 19 drivers still in this race. One driver out, it's Alex Albon in the Williams.
Charles Leclerc's looking quite racy at the moment behind Fernando Alonso, especially quick in the final sector, but then Alonso seems to find something through turns 1, 2 and 3 to give him that edge and get him away from the immediate threat of the Ferrari down towards turn 7.
Hamilton, we just heard on the radio, or it was a written message, so we didn't hear it, but we saw it, was saying he's already struggling with this tyre, on the hard tyre, and if he's going to make that go to the end of the 62 laps, that is a hard task.
Let's just see, because we know that Lewis can send message. We know that he can send these messages out. Normally he sends them out when he's leading a race, and we've seen that time and time again in the past. Maybe he is struggling, Charles Leclerc.
Oh, this is so frustrating. How many laps are we going to do like this?
Keep calm.
Charles Leclerc being told to keep calm, but you have to understand why he is frustrated, Sam. He's been behind Alonso and Hülkenberg for what seems like the entirety of this race so far, cannot find a way through.
Well, nobody wants to be the first one in this kind of midfield pack to pit. Everybody's kind of waiting and going, no after you, no after you. We now go on board, well, we're not on board with, but we're seeing the view of Max Verstappen having a very, very lonely race in second place, to the best part of 20 seconds behind Lando Norris. And we've only just done 24 laps. This is sensational from Lando Norris and the McLaren team.
This is probably one of the strongest drives, opening race stints we've seen from Lando Norris so far. At 24 of 62 as we are closing in on halfway distance when we get up to lap 31, so still over halfway to go in this Grand Prix. Yet to see a safety car or a yellow flag or indeed a red flag. So can that affect the strategy? Is that what all of the drivers are waiting for before they call it quits on this set of tyres and come into the pits? And getting a slow-mo shot of the front left, Sam, of Max Verstappen's medium tyre, with a bit of graining on the middle of that tyre there, whilst Lando Norris's look fairly clean and neat and tidy.
Yeah, I'd say that Max Verstappen's fronts look a little bit angrier than Lando Norris's do, that's for sure. We know that McLaren is slightly better on its tyres than pretty much everybody else out there. Now we're looking at the view of Lewis Hamilton in 11th, charging down and breathing down the neck of Yuki Tsunoda, who is sitting in 10th place.
If you're Charles Leclerc, Sam, how do you keep calm in the cockpit of the car when you know you're quicker, but you just...
I'd be doing exactly the same as Charles Leclerc. I'd be tearing my hair out right now. It's so frustrating, but remember, the engineers on the Pratt perch and the engineers back at base, they see far more than we do in the car. All we can see in the car is what's directly in front of us. We need the information from the engineers to paint that picture of the race, as we see Charles Leclerc still trying to find a way past Fernando Alonso.
And Alonso is right behind Nico Hülkenberg, who is driving a stellar race so far still for Haas, up inside the top 5, but the top 10 have all still to pit. But who will call their bluff? Who will blink first and come into the pit lane? We're still waiting to find out. It's lap 25 of 62. Lando Norris leads by 19.5 seconds. Russell, Piastri, Hülkenberg the top 5. Alonso, Leclerc in this battle for 5th, 6th and 7th. Colapinto, Perez and Tsunoda round out the top 10. Rosanna.
Well, the word before the race, Harry, was that if you put on a new set of hards, you were going to be faster than an old set of mediums. But the feedback that we're hearing, both from Kevin Magnussen in his first stint, because he's had the hard on the car since the start of the race, and now from Lewis Hamilton saying that he doesn't like the hard tyre either, I think this is giving the teams a little bit of a headache. Will they stay on the medium for way, way longer than they planned and then even contemplate running on the soft? We saw that Lewis Hamilton could make that last for nearly 20 seconds. Here's Hamilton again.
Yeah, you're killing me with this offset, mate.
Yeah, lots of options open to us still, Lewis.
You're killing me with this offset, mate, is what Lewis Hamilton says to Bono, his engineer. Lots of options still on the table, though, for Mercedes and Hamilton. He is right up behind Tsunoda now as Charles Leclerc finally gets ahead of Fernando Alonso up into 6th spot. We haven't quite seen how it happened as the Mercedes man of Hamilton runs deep into 16, trying to get past Yuki Tsunoda in the RB. Tsunoda then comes back through. Hamilton frustrated then on the radio, not happy perhaps on his hard tyre, tried to get through on Tsunoda. Tsunoda bit back, and Alonso, well, Leclerc has got through. It's because Alonso has come into the pits. Looks like a nice, neat and tidy stop, 2.6 seconds, swapping out his medium tyres for hard.
A scrub set of hard for Fernando Alonso as he rejoins the track in 15th place, so lots of work to do for him. But yeah, Lewis Hamilton just braked too late, didn't he, Harry? There was never going to be stopping that into the chicane, and easy pass back through for Yuki Tsunoda. In fact, Lewis Hamilton did well to keep it out of the wall.
We're just getting another look. He closes up down that new DRS zone run into turn 16, and he's just carrying so much speed. This is the sound on board. Closing, gets right up behind Tsunoda, pulls to the right.
Something's definitely wrong with the car, mate. Tyres are dropping off.
Yep, that's all surface-driven.
Something's definitely wrong with this car. The tyres are dropping off. That's all surface-driven, as Toto Wolff puts his head in his hands. What does he mean by that's all surface-driven, Sam?
Well, the surface of the tyre, so the tyre temperatures are crucial to your performance. Now, if they're getting too hot, you will slide around more. He's been pushing quite hard to try and get track position and gain his way through some of this traffic. Now, if he's overheated his tyres, it will feel like he's got no grip.
Well, Hamilton back behind Tsunoda now, who is 9th. Hamilton is 10th. Charles Leclerc has been released, but only a tad, to catch up behind Nico Hülkenberg now that Alonso is coming to the pits. Alonso sped out just ahead of his teammate Lance Stroll, down in 15th. But I tell you what, Hamilton knows that he could be undercut here.
Rear tyres, they're quite bad now.
Yep, understood. Max shouldn't be too long.
Rear tyres are quite bad now, that's what Verstappen says. I should say overcut here, because I think Oscar Piastri is slightly being held up now in fourth by George Russell, who is in third. Piastri looks like he's the more confident in that car right now at this stage of the race, and depending on how quickly he could displace Russell, I think Piastri's trying to see if he can get out ahead of Lewis Hamilton when his pit stop time comes.
Well, they might not be ahead after the pit stop, but when they will potentially get Lewis Hamilton is towards the end of the race. Lewis's tyres will be 10-15 laps older than the likes of George Russell and Oscar Piastri come the end of the race.
As just getting a look at Carlos Sainz down in 12th, coming out through the left-hander of turn 13 as Russell is told to pit. Sainz is just picking off Esteban Ocon in the Alpine down the inside of Ocon, makes that look easy. Sainz, who pitted very early in this race, now staging a bit of a comeback drive. So Russell's in the pits then. That promotes Oscar Piastri up into third. Let's head down to Rosanna.
This is going to be an interesting one. George Russell into the pit box then. The mechanics go to work. It looked like a nice smooth stop. 2.2 second stop time. Lovely from the British driver and the Mercedes team. And he's back out there. Where's he going to feed out though? Because did he have enough of a gap? The pit stop time, they say, is about 30 seconds. This could be crucial. Where is he going to filter out, Harry? I think he's going to get out just ahead of his teammate Lewis Hamilton. So the overcut there working for George Russell. The undercut not for Hamilton.
Yeah, it will be an easy overcut for Russell, as we've just seen. He does indeed feed out ahead of his teammate, and well, Piastri should be able to manage that as well when he comes in to the pits. Charles Leclerc closing right up to the back of Nico Hülkenberg into the braking zone of turn 7. The Hulk has been promoted now up into 4th place, having stayed out on his tyres, but he started in 6th, made it up to 5th.
Okay mate, this is the race, let's go.
As Piastri is told by his engineer Tom Stallard, this is the race, let's go. Russell has pitted, come out in 8th. Hamilton is at 3.4 seconds behind Russell in 9th. Piastri was behind both of them at the start of this race. So McLaren trying to get the jump on at least one Mercedes in the next lap or so. Pushing this lap, we might see him come in at the end of this lap, which is lap 29. Leclerc has started to turn up the wick too, but Hülkenberg driving very nicely indeed. Just keeping that Ferrari at bay. Hülkenberg running up in 4th now, yet to pit. Indeed, the top 4 runners in this race and top 5 runners in this race have all yet to pit, along with Colapinto and Perez, as Leclerc dives down the inside of Nico Hülkenberg into the right-hander of 16, manages to get the move done as he approaches now into the double left-hander that sees off the lap. Leclerc made it look easy in the end, but it's been coming for 29 laps near enough. Finally, Leclerc is ahead of Hülkenberg, but that was a masterful defence for Hülkenberg for so long.
He's driven superbly so far this evening, and it's great to see him fighting against some of the big boys in Formula 1. The interesting thing for me now, as we see Sergio Perez in the pits, decent enough stop, 2.2 seconds. That's very, very quick from the Red Bull guys. As I was saying, the interesting thing for me now, we're seeing Oscar Piastri take chunks out of Max Verstappen towards the end of their stints on the medium. Could we now see a fight between Max Verstappen and Oscar Piastri come the end of the race?
Front wing damage, maybe front wing damage.
That's Lando Norris, our race leader, with potential front wing damage. He's got 20 seconds over Max Verstappen. Is there contact, perhaps, for Lando Norris somewhere around this lap? Max Verstappen is told on the radio to box, box, box. Now the added question, can Oscar Piastri try and jump Max Verstappen by the end of this race? It's been a little bit of a slow burn so far over the 30 laps, but it is starting to come alive now. Is the Singapore Grand Prix strategy so crucial as Verstappen comes into the pits? He's the first garage, the first box to stop into, peels in, and it's slightly slow, I think, on the rear right. 3-second stop, that is slow by Red Bull margins. Piastri carries on through up into 2nd. The gap between Norris and Piastri, 30 seconds. Where will Verstappen ease out? He should be able to, I think Leclerc's going to get him. We'll see. Leclerc's coming down to turn 1 now, but Verstappen has the shorter line through. Leclerc on much older tyres, but up to temperature. They're almost side by side, coming through the left-hander and out of the exit 6 into turn 4. Leclerc chops across Verstappen. Leclerc holds on to that third place. Verstappen has to slot in behind, now out on the hard tyre, but Verstappen should be able to find a way through on Leclerc soon enough.
He should breeze past Charles Leclerc with new hard tyres at some point in the near future, but Charles Leclerc could be Oscar Piastri's best friend if he can hold him up for 4, maybe 5 laps, burn into those hard tyres, those new hard tyres, and then allow Oscar Piastri to try and get on the back of the Red Bull driver. What I'm concerned about was that message that Lando Norris put out there as he's now boxed. Lando Norris is in the pits.
Norris into the pits. We haven't seen anything with Lando Norris making any kind of contact. He's into the pits. Rosanna.
And in he comes, and I'm trying to have a little look if there is any damage for the front wing. They've made a little adjustment maybe, but new tyres, new hard tyres go onto the McLaren car, and it was a pretty smooth stop. So I don't think there was any damage as we see Max Verstappen now making the move on those fresh hard tyres past the Monegasque driver Charles Leclerc, taking the inside, and he's up to P3, and Lando Norris is out, having pitted, and he is back in the lead. Now a 23.5 second gap to his teammate Oscar Piastri.
Piastri just coming through turn 1 now. We need to keep an eye on Oscar Piastri here to see how quick his lap times are. He's got 19 seconds over Max Verstappen right now. Verstappen has pitted onto the hard tyre. Piastri has stayed out on the medium tyre, which now will be starting to wear and tear. But how much has Piastri kept those tyres alive? Can he eke out a few more seconds to try and get a margin? But at the moment, it's not quite enough. The pit loss here is on average 30 seconds. The gap between himself and Verstappen, 18.6.
So Piastri hasn't pit, Leclerc hasn't pit. Can Piastri overcut George Russell and stick it into third, and then he's got the job of catching Max Verstappen?
This is the sound of Max Verstappen making his way out of the pit lane, and gets greeted by a Ferrari of chopping him across.
I just don't get it why we let him uppercut us by so far. It's just so stupid.
Verstappen not happy to have to sit behind the Ferrari and frustrated. I should say the gap has actually updated on my timing screen now between Piastri and Verstappen. The gap between Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri is 23.5 seconds, and then the gap between Piastri and Max Verstappen is now sitting at about 19 seconds.
No, the gap between
3.2 seconds between Norris and Piastri, my apologies, and then it's 19 seconds back to Verstappen. That's now come down to around about 17.6 seconds.
So the gap, Lando Norris.
We see a small issue with the front wing, nothing serious.
Norris, we see a small issue with the front wing, but nothing serious. That's off the back of some team radio messages a little earlier, where Norris reporting he might have some front wing damage. We've not seen anything where he's had any kind of contact with the wall. He's come into the pits now, has Norris, and not had a front wing change. There's clearly they've seen something, but not enough to warrant a front wing change.
No, it cost him a bit too much time, and he's in the groove right now. That's the last thing that we would want, is a front wing change. Oscar Piastri running in second right now is offset compared to the people he's racing against. Now, Max Verstappen will jump him for second place when Oscar Piastri pits. The question is, can Oscar Piastri catch him at the end of the race with fresher hard tyres? We're now going on board with Lando Norris. Maybe we'll see now. Lap 29 replay, yes.
Lando Norris locking up, going into the right-hander. I think that was coming into the right-hander of turn, down towards turn, just before you come onto the right-hander of turn 14, making its way down that new DRS zone stretch, locks up and almost goes straight into the wall. The car finally gets some purchase at the last minute, but that is as close as you want to get to a wall.
Yeah, that would have certainly woken him up, because he was having a very lonely afternoon out in front before that point. But boy, oh boy, that was close.
Yeah, that was on lap 29.
Hey, a bit of encouragement, mate.
Yeah, AFM. So traction metrics, everything's looking really good at the moment.
Sometimes I feel like I need a bit of encouragement throughout the race.
You're doing great, Harry. You're doing great.
I really messed up the timings there a few moments ago. I blamed my screen for that one. But
Your
Russell
chair had a bit of oversteer.
It did. I know it did. Sorry, I'm getting excited. But Russell then clearly wanting a bit of encouragement. He's down there in fifth, and then being told where the positives are.
And these laps are crucial. Keep driving like this.
That's Leclerc's radio. These laps are crucial. Keep driving like this is what Brian Botzi, his race engineer, says to him. Leclerc currently down in 4th place. Leclerc yet to stop. Neither has Oscar Piastri. They're both running in the top 4. Our race leader, Lando Norris, has stopped with a small bit of front wing damage, but that doesn't seem to be slowing him down in this moment in time. Verstappen has stopped. He's emerged on the hard tyre, back in 3rd.
This race is a bit of a slow burner, isn't it, at the moment, Harry? We're kind of waiting to see what Oscar Piastri and Charles Leclerc do, but I think this race is going to come alive and make a lot more sense to everybody in the last 5 to 10 laps.
It is that 33 of 62, and we are now over halfway distance through this race. Norris leads Piastri by almost 6 seconds. Piastri yet to pit. Verstappen then a further 15 seconds back in 3rd on the hard tyre. Leclerc yet to pit in 4th. Then comes Russell, now ahead of Hamilton. Hamilton, who tried to stay out as long as possible on the soft tyre and has paid the price slightly for that, down in 6th. Then comes Tsunoda in 7th, yet to pit. Sainz is now up to 8th, having been one of the first stoppers in this race. Hulkenberg is just behind Alonso now. Hulkenberg's down to 10th, Alonso in 9th, so that is a net gain for Fernando Alonso after they have both pitted. That's how your top 10 looks. Perez is all over the back of Hulkenberg in 11th. Then Colapinto's down to 12th. Gasly, Ricciardo, Zhou's the top 15 ahead of Bottas.
The target lap will be the Plan C target lap. It'll be the lap for Plan C.
Copy. Front right, starting to struggle a bit.
Plan C for Oscar Piastri as his front right tyre is starting to struggle a bit. Bottas 16th, Ocon, Magnussen and Stroll, the 19 drivers left in this race. Alex Albon now out of the race, having retired early doors as Tsunoda finally comes into the pits. So Piastri's on Plan C then, really making these medium tyres go. 33 laps at the moment. You have to wonder, are they also holding out hope that we might well get a safety car at some stage?
Well, I think they're waiting a little bit longer because right now George Russell is stuck behind Charles Leclerc. Now we know that Piastri's pace is quicker than Charles Leclerc. If Charles Leclerc can hold up George Russell just that little bit longer, he could jump George Russell and then he's got a free access to go and hunt down Max Verstappen come the end of the race.
Russell is all over the back of Charles Leclerc, over the Anderson Bridge into the braking zone of turn 13, out through the left-hander DRS zone.
Oscar, we're tempted to stay out. That would mean you had to overtake Hamilton after the stop. How would that be?
I'm sure it's a great idea.
Piastri told we're tempted to stay out, but that would mean they'd fall behind Hamilton and he'd have to make the move on track. How would that be, Oscar? Not really a fan of that. Piastri responds, not in those words, but that's the gist of it. So Piastri then are back and forth on the radio as to what they're doing with the strategy. It was Plan A, now it's B, now on to Plan C. 7.8 seconds back is Piastri from his teammate Lando Norris. Lando, who has pitted and leads this race with the fastest lap. Max Verstappen is in 3rd, who has pitted onto the hard tyre. Charles Leclerc keeping George Russell at bay over 4th and 5th.
We're pulling Piastri back into our window very slowly, only 1 second unsafe.
Hamilton told that he is pulling Piastri back in, so the race is on between Hamilton and Piastri. The race is on between Russell and Charles Leclerc. Leclerc in the Ferrari on the medium tyre in 4th, yet to pit. Russell with the advantage of of fresher tyres, but he's on the hard tyre down in 5th. But Russell is all over the back of Leclerc, but we've seen so much how overtaking is incredibly difficult here. You need a big delta over the car in front. You almost need to force the car in front of you into a slight mistake, but through the left-hander of 11 and 12, Charles Leclerc's Ferrari is not looking happy, Sam.
No, he's squirming around at the rear, isn't he? Traction looks to be quite difficult. Is George Russell going to get good traction down the straight towards turn 14? It's okay, but I don't think he's close enough. His next manoeuvre will be in the next DRS zone, out of the tight right-hander, back on the power, DRS wing activated now. Closing, jink to the inside. Oh, and it's round the outside.
Nearly contact. Russell's forced off the road. Look to the inside, picked the outside. Leclerc held on. Russell had to go off the road. Rejoins behind Leclerc, who is getting his elbows out here. Russell will get another dose of DRS down towards turn 1, but the braking zone beckons too soon. I don't think Russell will be too pleased with how that one ended up.
Well, Charles Leclerc was perfectly within his right to put him there. George Russell went to the outside, and when a driver goes around the outside of you, you don't really necessarily have to give them too much room. So I think Charles Leclerc was absolutely right with his driving there. George Russell now, okay, the tyres will be cleaned up now, but would have spent 4 or 5 corners there suffering with dust and dirt all over those hard compound tyres.
Certainly will. Almost take a few quarters, half a lap to try and wash off all of that. We're getting another look at it then. So Leclerc picks a side. Well, actually, he's forced. Russell is forced to go outside because Leclerc defends that inside line.
I think that's good. That's good racing. Good, hard, fair racing from these two.
Almost contact, tyre to tyre, and in the end Russell is run out of road by Charles Leclerc, and the dust that comes at you offline, those tyres picking up all sorts of dust and mark offline, so he'll need to try and scrub those off and then try again, and he does indeed already close right up to the back of Charles Leclerc, coming through the right-hander of turn 14, through the slight left-hand kink of 15. Here we go again then, down towards in the new DRS zone, into the braking zone, the right-hander of turn 16, a quick flick through the left-hander of 17, not as close as he was 1 lap ago, but I think Charles Leclerc is calling it a day and coming into the pits to finally get rid of his medium tyres. He does indeed peel into the pit lane.
It will be very tight with Hulkenberg. Come on.
It will be very tight with Hulkenberg. Hulkenberg was ahead of Alonso and Charles Leclerc before the pit stops occurred. Hulkenberg in the Haas driving a sterling race. Alonso has managed to pick Hulkenberg off. Alonso's currently 8th, Hulkenberg in 9th. It's a swift pit stop as well for Charles Leclerc. 2.2 seconds. Hulkenberg's just coming around the final 2 corners now as Charles Leclerc exits the pit lane. It's going to be tight, but I think Leclerc's going to have it in hand. Leclerc into the left-hander on turn 1. Feeds out just in front of Nico Hulkenberg, but Hulkenberg will have more momentum. His tyres will be up to temperature quicker. He'll also have the aid of the DRS as they make their way through the right-hander and turn 5 down Raffles Boulevard. Can Hulkenberg try and throw a spanner in the works? Piastri is told, saying it's getting very tricky now, referring, I would assume, to managing his pace on these 36-lap-old medium tyres. Hulkenberg trying to find a way through Leclerc, but in the end will have to fall behind, and Leclerc does indeed manage to get ahead of Hulkenberg. Leclerc 8th, Hulkenberg 9th, and actually Sergio Perez is now closing in on Hulkenberg's 9th place.
Yeah, good strategy there from Ferrari, getting Charles Leclerc in on that lap to make sure that they had the track position ahead of Nico Hulkenberg. That could change their afternoon. Now he's got to set off to try and catch Fernando Alonso.
Lap 38 of 62, Lando Norris leads the Singapore Grand Prix from Oscar Piastri, who was yet to pit, and Max Verstappen currently in 3rd, who has pitted. And we're just seeing a look at Sergio Perez making his way up through the field. Tough qualifying for him, started down in 13th, just picking off the Alpine of Pierre Gasly as the Williams of Franco Colapinto just behind that battle has to run wide. Perez 10th, Colapinto in 11th. Colapinto pushing out there, the Argentine driver in his 3rd Grand Prix, having replaced Logan Sargent following the Dutch Grand Prix, just on the edges of the top 10 at the moment.
On the edges of the track as well. He's been noted for leaving the track and gaining an advantage at turn 16. We actually saw that when Perez was making a move on the Alpine car. So yeah, Colapinto's having a great afternoon, but maybe getting a slap wrist from the FIA.
Box for Oscar Piastri, that is what he's told on the radio. 14.8 seconds the gap between himself and Lando Norris. Norris is pitted, Piastri will come in for his first pit stop in just a few moments time. He'll succumb the position to Max Verstappen, who is only 8.5 seconds back from Piastri. Then comes Russell, then comes Hamilton. Now Piastri was falling into the clutches of Lewis Hamilton. They didn't want to pit Piastri and have him come out behind Lewis Hamilton and have to do the overtake on track. How will that pan out? Piastri's into the pits, Rosanna.
And it is a quick stop, 2.2. We've had several drivers with a stop time of 2.2 this evening. So the stop is done. He's now filtering back out down the pit lane. Where's he going to come? One Mercedes goes past. Is another one. Yes, I think it's going to be super close. He's going to come out behind Lewis Hamilton. That hasn't worked out so well for Oscar Piastri, but I think his engineer Tom Stallard did say he was going to have to overtake Lewis Hamilton if they stayed out and went for plan C, and that is exactly what's happened. Can he now find a way past the Mercedes driver with this new fresh set of hards? How long will it take for them to get up to temperature?
Well, exactly that. Thanks, Rosanna. He's got the advantage indeed of a bit of fresh rubber. He's come out about 1.5 seconds behind Lewis Hamilton. Piastri feeds out in 5th. So now everybody has done at least one pit stop. It's Norris who leads by 23 seconds to Max Verstappen. Then it's Russell in 3rd, ahead of Hamilton, who is 1.3 seconds ahead of Oscar Piastri. On much fresher rubber now is the Australian in his 2nd season for McLaren. Sainz, being one of the early pit stoppers, has worked his way back up to 6th place. Started down in 10th after crashing out in Q3. Alonso is 7th ahead of Leclerc. Hulkenberg's lost positions now down to 9th, but still in the points crucially. Perez taking that final point at the moment in 10th. Colapinto is in 11th ahead of Daniel Ricciardo. Then comes Tsunoda, Ocon, Magnussen, the top 15, followed by Stroll, Joe, Bottas and Gasly. The 19 drivers still in this race, with Alex Albon being the one retirement for Williams, as Esteban Ocon has just had a nice fight there with one of the Hasses, and indeed the other Haas making its way through on the other Alpine. Magnussen and Ocon fighting it out further down in 14th and 15th. Ocon now ahead of Magnussen, with Stroll just behind.
So in terms of the Constructors' Championship, with where the drivers sit now, this is working out very, very nicely for McLaren. Not so much so for Ferrari. Red Bull, I think it's probably damage limitation. They probably need Perez to get a couple more positions, but certainly a great afternoon so far, but 22 laps to go for McLaren.
It's been an absolute walkover for Lando Norris so far in this race, but Oscar Piastri with the DRS is all over the back of Lewis Hamilton for 4th place. Hamilton moves to the inside line, down towards turn 7. Piastri sweeps round the outside, keeps it neat and tidy. Lovely move from the Australian as the McLaren gets through on the 7-time champion in the Mercedes. Piastri up into 4th, Hamilton down to 5th.
I mean, those hard tyres of Lewis Hamilton's are getting old now, but that's a stunning move from Oscar Piastri. We saw it last weekend where he overtook for the lead from miles back, and he's done another brilliant move round the outside of the 7-time world champion. Now he needs to get after George Russell. Come on, Oscar.
Charles Leclerc right behind Fernando Alonso too.
What are we waiting for?
We are discussing Yuki.
What are we waiting for is what Yuki Tsunoda is asking. He's found himself behind his teammate Daniel Ricciardo, but Tsunoda is on the soft tyre and is a couple of seconds back from his teammate Ricciardo, so one would imagine he would want to be ahead of his teammate Daniel Ricciardo, having started ahead and been ahead of him. So that's what's going down at RB. Further up for 7th and 8th, side-by-side action down towards turn 14. Leclerc gets the move done on the Aston Martin of Fernando Alonso, and not really much Alonso could do to fight that one off. Charles Leclerc now through and up into 7th spot.
Yuki, we need to stay calm. We need to stay calm.
It's clear.
Okay, Yuki, I'll tell you what we're doing. We close up and then we swap. We close up and then we swap.
Yeah, with the tire, dumbass.
Tsunoda there arguing his case. The team want him to close up to Daniel Ricciardo. The gap is just over 1.5 seconds. This is over 12th and 13th at the moment, but Tsunoda then arguing back, and I think fairly wisely that, well, and to do that, I'll get in the dirty air and it will destroy the tyre and I'll lose the advantage of having the quick rubber.
Yeah, we're seeing now a lot of the early stoppers starting to struggle, and it's quite early to struggle with 21 laps to go. The likes of Lewis Hamilton, the likes of Ricciardo, the likes of Alonso, all pitted just that little bit earlier than some of the others. We're seeing them drop away with their pace.
Lap 42 of 62, Norris leads by 23.5 seconds, but there is a battle brewing on and off the track, it seems, between the two RB drivers. But does Daniel Ricciardo let his teammate through down towards turn 7 with the aid of DRS side by side for the two RBs, and Tsunoda makes his way through. Tsunoda on the soft tyre started in 8th place and fell out of the top 10 in the early stage of this race, while Ricciardo started all the way back in 16th, but there's a tyre disparity now. Tsunoda Tsunoda on the soft, Ricciardo on the medium, and the move does indeed come. Daniel Ricciardo down to 13th in what many are speculating as could be his final race as a Formula One driver. Still news to come on that front, with Liam Lawson heavily rumoured to be taking that seat at some stage, whether that be after this Grand Prix or for 2025 and beyond, we shall see.
Oscar Piastri is coming for George Russell, a few tenths on the last lap, and the gap is now below 3 seconds.
The fight is on here between Russell and Piastri over that final podium position. Piastri, who bemoaned his qualifying performance, really finished 7th in the Grand Prix last year, started this race from 5th place, but just blamed himself really for not putting in a good enough lap time when it counted in what was a bit of a truncated final qualifying session, with that big crash for Carlos Sainz, who himself has just been told to swap positions to his teammate Charles Leclerc. Leclerc is in 7th and has the fastest lap and is within half a second near enough to his teammate. Sainz 6th, Leclerc 7th. How long will it stay that way? Coming through turn 11, where's the best place to swap positions? Probably out through 13.
I think out of 13 down towards 14 the swap will occur. Charles Leclerc obviously on the much fresher rubber compared to Carlos Sainz.
Up through the gears then for Charles Leclerc as Sainz takes the racing line but doesn't exactly pull out of the way through the right-hander of 14. Leclerc closes up. We'll get another dose of DRS through the left-hand kink of 15, and then indeed Sainz lifts off well before the braking zone for the right-hander of turn 16, and Leclerc is through. Ferrari swap positions. Leclerc 6th, Sainz 7th.
Piastri now 1.5 seconds behind Piastri and sets the fastest lap of the race on the last lap. He's coming for George Russell.
1.5 seconds the gap indeed. Last lap around for Russell was a 1:37.3. Oscar Piastri a 1:35.8. Piastri is pushing here. The battle for third is on between Mercedes and McLaren, between Russell and Piastri. The battle for fifth is on between the Mercedes of Hamilton and the Ferrari of Charles Leclerc, now unleashed from his teammate Carlos Sainz, but he's got about 14 seconds to make up on Lewis Hamilton on lap 43 of 62, getting towards the final third of this Grand Prix under the lights at the Marina Bay Street Circuit, the 15th edition of the Singapore Grand Prix.
If you keep this pace, we should catch Hamilton at the end.
Brian Boxley saying to Charles Leclerc, well, if you can keep that pace up, we will catch Hamilton towards the end. But that will be the crucial question, won't it, Sam? Can he keep that pace in the tyre?
I think he should be able to now. He's got clean air. He should be able to put in some laps and catch Hamilton. Hamilton's tyres are a lot older than Charles Leclerc's. It'll be interesting to see just how close to the end he catches him. And then it's one thing catching, it's another thing passing.
Wise words indeed. Sam Bird, that is the voice of the McLaren Formula E driver, Sam Bird, alongside myself, Harry Benjamin. We also have Rosanna Tennant down on the ground with us too. It's lap 44 of 62. Lando Norris leads Max Verstappen. Then comes George Russell in third, and he is having to fight hard from Oscar Piastri, who is setting fastest lap after fastest lap out through the right-hander of turn 5, down towards the next braking zone of turn 7. He'll get the dose of DRS. Sparks fly from the underside of the Mercedes, but Piastri isn't close enough to try and dive down the inside like he did so magnificently on Hamilton, and indeed last time around in Baku on Charles Leclerc for the lead of this race. But the move is there, the move is coming, Sam.
No, and when he gets a sniff of a move, Oscar Piastri goes for the move. He looks so much quicker and more comfortable on these hard tyres at the moment than George Russell. I'm saying he has a go into turn 14.
So Leclerc still doing I-36 is out there. Is a chance of interacting very end of the race if he can keep that pace up.
So that's what George Russell is being told. So Mercedes, not only worried Leclerc will catch Hamilton, but also Russell too, because I think Russell's days are numbered in third place right now. Piastri all over the back of him once again through the left-hand kink of turn 15. The next dose of DRS comes to a close now as he slams on the brakes through the right-hander of 16, chuck it into the left-hander of 17, get dangerous dangerously close to the exit wall before the braking zone comes for the double left-hander that sees off 19 corners of the Singapore Grand Prix. Another dose of DRS straight away as he gets up to turn 1, but it's not long enough to try and position his McLaren down the inside of George Russell. They thread the needle through 2, then 3, out through 4. Okay, another dose of DRS coming up. Line yourself up nicely. Carry the momentum through the right-hander of turn 5. The DRS line will come. The rear wing flap will fly open for the McLaren of Oscar Piastri. Sparks fly from the underside of Russell, who moves to the inside at turn 7, sweeping round the outside, getting so close to contact, but Piastri makes the move stick and gets ahead of George Russell. Fine margins, but a fine move for Oscar Piastri up into the podium places.
He's making his own top 5 overtakes of the season, isn't he? What a move by Oscar Piastri. He's done the same thing to both Mercedes drivers.
Lovely move from Oscar Piastri, but it's Charles Leclerc who sets the fastest lap last time around. So lap 46 of 62. The gap between Norris and Verstappen is almost 24 seconds. This has been an absolutely dominant display so far from the McLaren of Lando Norris. Verstappen second, Piastri now up into 3rd, Russell down to 4th, teammate Hamilton behind, about 7 seconds behind in 5th. But Charles Leclerc has been told, well, the two Mercedes are catchable here by the end of the race. Can he keep the pace up at the moment? Fastest lap last time around, a 1:35.6. Compare that to the two Mercedes, a 1:39.3 for Russell, a 1:37.5 for Lewis Hamilton. Leclerc is going quicker as we just get another look at that wonderful move from Piastri on Russell.
Isn't it great watching these gladiators, these warriors going head to head in the streets at Singapore at night? The sparks flying around the track as we see Oscar Piastri's move yet again. What a great move around the outside of George Russell.
Well, we'll keep an eye on Leclerc closing in on the two Mercedes. Leclerc's currently in 6th. Let's just have a little look further down outside. We're on the edges of the top 10. Nico Hülkenberg is holding on to 2 points at the moment in 9th for Haas, having started in 6th, keeping Leclerc and Alonso at bay for so long in the first stint of this race. However, he has now fallen behind them both, and he's got Sergio Perez in the other Red Bull, recovering from 13th, catching the German ahead.
But they're both catching Fernando Alonso. Alonso had a 7-second gap to Hülkenberg around about 7 to 10 laps ago. So I think that Alonso's coming back towards these two. Hülkenberg's got a sniff of 8th place this afternoon.
The problem for Hülkenberg, he's not quite within the DRS yet of Alonso in front, whereas Perez is, so he's able to close in on Hülkenberg. And you know what? Franco Colapinto in the Williams isn't too far behind either, about a second or so back from Perez in the Williams. So those are the fight. That's the fight happening in the lower ends of the top 10. Here's Hülkenberg.
The tyres are looking very good, Nico, very good.
So tyres looking very good, Nico, is what he is told. So feel free to push on them. Lap 47 of 62 as we now reach the 75% complete mark for this Grand Prix. 62 laps in total. And closing up, Alonso in 8th, bringing Hülkenberg behind in 9th, but Perez is closer to Hülkenberg than Hülkenberg is to Alonso.
Just making short around here, mate.
That is how George Russell described it even before the race. The conditions, even at night in Singapore, it's like the drivers are stuck in a sauna with the temperature gauge getting higher and higher. That is how it is in terms of the heat, and it's starting to affect Russell slightly. Further back, Ricciardo getting passed by not one but 2 cars coming through the left-hander of turn 10, which is not really where you see many overtakes being done. But further up, we're just getting another look at Lando Norris coming into the same corner, and was that where George Russell crashed last year in the penultimate lap of this race? And Norris touching the wall, kissing the wall, managing to get it turned in, but that is not what the McLaren team will want to see. Norris is pushing, but he's got the margin. He's got of over 20 seconds between himself and Verstappen. That's nail-biting stuff, Sam.
He's ahead by a month. You don't need to do that, Lando. Just keep it away from the walls. You've got the best part of 25 seconds to Max Verstappen. Just coast it home, please.
Yeah, the first traction, mate. Are you start bouncing like a kangaroo?
After that, keep your head down, do what you can.
That's Sergio Perez saying he is bouncing like a kangaroo, no traction. He's trying to close in on Nico Hülkenberg's 9th place. Franco Colapinto in the Williams is keeping pace with them as well. He's closing in behind in 11th. Colapinto in his 3rd Grand Prix with a sniff at a back-to-back points paying finish too. Perez closing up into the braking zone of turn 16, but Hülkenberg, who's been told he has been managing the tyres well, he's got pace in them and running well at the moment, but not able to close in on Fernando Alonso ahead. That's the battle for 8th, 9th, 10th and 11th is where Colapinto is. Tsunoda is 12th ahead of Ocon. Magnussen and Stroll the top 15. Then it's the two Saubers, Joe ahead of Bottas, Gasly and Ricciardo, 18th and 19th. Ricciardo, who kind of got mugged really going into the left-hander of turn 10 by Bottas and Gasly, down to 19th. He's on the soft tyre, so I wonder if Ricciardo's tyres have given up.
No, he pitted from the medium to the soft recently because those medium tyres had given up the ghost. So yeah, difficult weekend for Ricciardo, and as we've all speculated, is this the final time we see Daniel Ricciardo in a Formula 1 car?
Well, let's see. He'll have the benefit of fresh rubber now. Indeed, Ricciardo did come in for a second stop, so filters out at the back of the pack. So, he can have a bit of fun at the back there, trying to set purple sector times. Let's see what Ricciardo can do in the closing stages of this Singapore Grand Prix. Back up front, the gap 26.3 seconds between Norris and Verstappen. Piastri is 3rd, then comes Russell ahead of Hamilton. Leclerc now 3 seconds behind Lewis Hamilton. That fight is closing up. Sainz 7th, Alonso 8th, then comes Hülkenberg, Perez the top 10.
Just want to point out as well, as I said, don't push to Lando Norris. He's just done a 34.925 around about 2 seconds a lap quicker than everybody else.
Okay, so full concentration now, take a drink.
Full concentration, take a drink, take a breath, maybe leave a little bit more margin for the wall, Lando. You've got 26 seconds, you've got your fastest lap, but the thing is, he needs to maximise every weekend now. If he is to mount a challenge in the driver's title, coming into this race, there were 59 points separating Lando Norris from Max Verstappen, who currently leads the Constructors' Championship. He needs to outscore Verstappen at every single round by over 8 points. So he needs 25 plus the extra point for the fastest lap too.
Yeah, he needs to win every Grand Prix from now until the end of the season, and Max Verstappen to have a couple of missed opportunities in 3rd, 4th, 5th places to really have a realistic chance. But it doesn't matter whether you finish 30 seconds ahead or half a second ahead. It's 25 points for the win, so just bring it home nice and gentle, no mistakes. As his engineer was saying, take a drink, take a breath. It's important round here to hydrate, because if you lose concentration, those walls can bite you.
Like a great Formula 1 driver once said, it's important to stay alert on a street circuit, and that gap though is ominous. Nearly 30 seconds now between Norris and Verstappen. Let's check in though with Rosanna.
Wow, it is a big gap, isn't it? Almost a free pit stop for Lando Norris. That's how far ahead he is of Max Verstappen. And when we're talking about the drivers' standings, as things stand, Max Verstappen would leave Singapore with 331 points to his name, and Lando Norris would leave with 280, of course, getting that extra point because he's just taken the fastest lap. So the gap at the moment has shrunk down to 51 points. So Lando Norris has done absolutely everything he needs to do, but as his engineer Will Joseph has just said, he now just needs to concentrate and bring it home, as we see a nice move there. The Ferrari getting the move done on Lewis Hamilton. Charles Leclerc up to P5.
Yeah, that move's been coming for a little while now. The question will be, can Leclerc close up 8 seconds to catch up to the other Mercedes of George Russell and try and get a little bit of damage limitation for Ferrari, who both started this race along with Sainz down in 9th and 10th. Right now, Leclerc in 5th, Sainz is in 7th, having pitted very early in this race, but Leclerc has a chance here to get 4th by the end of this race if he can keep up this pace. Kevin Magnussen has come over the radio and reported he has a puncture, going very slowly indeed for Kevin Magnussen in the run down to turn 14. He's still able to get it moving. We haven't seen how he's got it. I wonder if he's had a bit of contact with the wall and that's given him a puncture. We're about to see, Sam, exactly what happened to K-Mag.
On board with Kevin Magnussen going down to turn 5. Everything looks okay there, but just a little tap on the wall on the exit, and that's what's giving them the puncture. Tiny little tap. Sometimes you get away with them, but obviously not on this occasion.
Not on this occasion for Kevin Magnussen there, and that's a long way back to the pits as well for Kevin Magnussen, and drops him all the way down the order. The Danish driver, who we suspect will leave us at the end of this season for pastures new, unless he springs a surprise. There is still one seat available at Sauber, and of course he missed the last race in Baku, serving his one race ban.
How are these tyres for a restart? Question.
I will probably stop.
How are these tyres for a restart? Question is what Brian Botzi asks Charles Leclerc. The response, I would probably stop. So covering the basis in case we get some sort of safety car or red flag in these closing stages and we are required to restart the race.
He's got 7.7 seconds gap to George Russell. The interesting thing now is how quickly can he close up to the back of the Mercedes driver. He's got 10 laps to try and close, 7.4 seconds now, so he is closing, but he needs to do it a little bit quicker.
Kevin Magnussen does make it back to the pits, and it's a fairly swift change for the Haas mechanics, who send him out on the soft tyre and feeds out plumb last. It's lap 52 of 62. Norris leads, Verstappen, Piastri, then Russell and Leclerc, the top five. Lap 52 of 62. The gap is 28 seconds between Lando Norris and Max Verstappen. We're watching to see how quickly Charles Leclerc can close up to George Russell, though, for fourth place. Under the lights here, it's lap 52 of 62 into the final 10 laps. Lando Norris has been unstoppable so far, with almost 30 seconds the gap between himself and Max Verstappen. He's pushing hard though, nearly a skirmish with the wall. Piastri is currently third. Charles Leclerc is closing down George Russell in the Mercedes for fourth as well. That's what's happening in the Singapore Grand Prix. 10 laps to go then, as fastest lap and currently set for the Grand Slam, pole, win, and the fastest lap could go the way of Lando Norris if it stays like this, but we know how tricky, how difficult it can be around a street circuit. Verstappen, Joe, that's for one thing. The Red Bull has not been a match for the McLaren so far. Russell's under pressure though.
Just kiss the wall. Take it over. Rear right.
Hey, pressure's looking good at the moment.
A kiss of the wall on the rear right for George Russell as he tries to push to keep ahead of Charles Leclerc, but it is the Ferrari that is hunting down George Russell for fourth place in this race as we head back down to Rosanna Tennant.
Oh, I'm getting memories of 2023, the Singapore Grand Prix last year. Remember George Russell hitting the wall. These last 10 laps are critical in terms of concentration. It is so hot here still. Local time coming up to 9:30 at night, and it is not easing up at all. Still so hot and humid. We've heard George Russell saying it feels like he's in a sauna. These are the moments where problems can happen. Drivers can end up in the wall. Even a late pit stop like that we saw with Kevin Magnussen. You can find finger trouble with the mechanics. It's so difficult operating in these conditions. And it's so difficult operating a Formula One car, especially at this point on lap 53 of 62.
It certainly is. These gladiators pushing all the way to the checkered flag within their sights, within 10 laps to go. Lando Norris, who started on pole position and has led every single lap of the race so far, pitted just the one stop, now comes out and has been racing hard, but has a gap, 29 seconds between himself and Verstappen.
Russell P1, 36.6.
What do you mean Russell P1?
I meant Norris, but I didn't want to speak in the corners.
I don't care about Norris, you mean Russell.
Leclerc and engineer Brian Botzi, then just a little bit of communication issues being fine-tuned out there.
Gap to Russell now 4.3 seconds, so Charles Leclerc is making big inroads into George Russell. He's only got though 8 laps in order to make this move. It's going to be very, very tricky.
Now, I was worried about this. We saw Kevin Magnussen have a puncture. He came into the pits and then put on the soft tyre. Lando Norris and held the fastest lap up until a lap ago, because Kevin Magnussen has now taken that away from him and taken the fastest lap because he's on that really quick soft rubber tyre.
Yeah, I mean, does Lando Norris have no, I don't think he does. He would need to get over a 30-second gap, wouldn't he? It's now 29.3. Do McLaren risk it? Do they?
Surely not, unless he can suddenly find another 5 or so seconds, but even more than that, and then stick on the soft to the end. I think that's too much of a risk, but let's see. Will McLaren want that extra point? I'm not sure, actually. I think Lando Norris has just taken it back all of a sudden, so we'll see. Last time around, Kevin Magnussen, a 1:34.7. We'll see. I think that's just our graphic on the timing screen needing to update there. Lap 55 of 62. The fight is on, though, for 4th place in this race between the Mercedes of George Russell and Leclerc.
Just chill out, bring this car home.
Will Joseph on the radio to Lando Norris, chill out, bring this car home. Is that basically don't try and retain the fastest lap, don't try and push any harder than you need to, leave that margin. Absolutely.
There's no need. I mean, he's done more than enough this afternoon. As we've just said, Harry, there's no extra points for finishing half a minute in front of your next rival.
Magnussen did take the fastest lap, but I think he exceeded track limits, so he had it deleted, so it's gone back to Norris anyway.
Well, there we go. Danger averted.
Danger averted. But he does increase the gap slightly, does Norris, to Verstappen, 29 seconds. Then it's Piastri a little on his own in 3rd, but a good recovery drive from Oscar Piastri, up from 5th on the grid, managing to jump the 2 Mercedes. Good strategy, good tyre management from the Aussie and McLaren. Russell is 4th, but he is having to look in his mirrors. 3.1 seconds now is Charles Leclerc. They've got a bit of traffic between them, though. Actually, it's Daniel Ricciardo in the RB who's a lap down, should get out of the way fairly quickly. Just outside of the top 5 is Hamilton ahead of Sainz, Alonso ahead of Hülkenberg, who's still ahead of Sergio Perez, who cannot find a way through on the German, and equally Colapinto is right there too, and Lando Norris is actually about to come up to all of this traffic in front of him too, so that's going to be another hurdle to navigate in the closing stages for Norris.
But he can take it nice and easy, can't he? He's got such a gap to Max Verstappen. He doesn't even need to really pass them. They will get blue flags and they will have to jump out of the way of him, but he doesn't need to really get involved with them too much.
This is the sound of Sergio Perez out through turn 5 in the DRS of Nico Hülkenberg. Sparks flying from the underside of the Haas. Perez has a little think about the inside, but the corner comes too soon. Can he try and dive down the inside of 8? No, he can't. And as they dice it out, Colapinto in the Williams closes up, and Lando Norris just peeking out behind in the previous corner. The leader of this race coming up to lap them all.
These two have raced against each other since 2004, so 20 seasons of racing against each other, and Sergio Perez still piling on the pressure too. So
down the inside for Perez, out of the bridge into the left-hander of 13. The gap closes. Hülkenberg sees him at the last minute and stays in front, but that was desperate from Perez. It would have been audacious if he could have pulled it off, but Hülkenberg gets a little squirt out of the rear end. He's just struggling under traction as they make their way down towards turn 16, the next DRS zone, but I think Hülkenberg will just about hold on to live to fight another corner, but time is coming and Perez is looming.
Well, he's trying to invent something different. Clearly he's not able to get close enough in the DRS zone, so he thought, you know what, I'm going to send it down the inside of the hairpin and catch him napping, but Nico Hülkenberg was aware to it. Luckily, no collision.
Perez, though, who could have been on the podium last week in Baku were it not for the penultimate lap crash with Carlos Sainz. Perhaps a bit of a rookie error from both Perez and Sainz on that occasion. An unnecessary collision. Could have bagged some big points. Now fighting over 2 points with Nico Hülkenberg in the Haas ahead of him for the time being. It's for points, it's for pride as well for Perez.
And the last major point scoring position is like the major overtake, 4th and 5th, Charles Leclerc versus George Russell. The gap is now down to just around 1.5 seconds.
This is the sound of Charles Leclerc making his way, getting closer towards
Just
Russell.
a reminder how tricky the following effect is. Oscar struggled going through 3 cars. Be careful.
So just being reminded is Lando Norris about the dirty air and how tricky it can be to actually overtake. Norris is coming up to a whole bunch of traffic right now. How does he navigate it? He'll have to pick off Franco Colapinto first of all, and then he'll have to get through Perez and Hulkenberg. Always a little bit more tricky when you come up to lapping cars who are battling, but they'll be given the blue flag.
And there's rules and regulations. If you're shown 3 blue flags, you have to get out of the way. If you get shown a 4th, you get reported to the stewards.
And they should. Colapinto's actually been shown blue flags last couple of times, so he will need to move out of the way and to allow Lando Norris through as he continues to navigate, making his way through the traffic. 5 laps to go of the Singapore Grand Prix. Norris leads by 26 seconds. Piastri 3rd, Verstappen 2nd, Russell 4th, currently holding on by just over a second to Charles Leclerc. That's the battle we're watching in these dying stages. Hamilton is 6th ahead of Sainz. Alonso, Hulkenberg still ahead of Perez in 10th, and those are the last of the point scorers. Colapinto is 11th, followed by Tsunoda 12th, Ocon, Stroll, Joe the top 15 ahead of his teammate Valtteri Bottas. Gasly 17th, Ricciardo is 18th, and Kevin Magnussen, who had a late race puncture, down in 19th. The one retirement, Alex Albon in the Williams. This battle brewing under the lights around this Marina Bay street circuit. Lap 58 of 62. George Russell currently holding on to 4th, but Charles Leclerc is now within the DRS zone. He's within a second.
He is within a second, but I've just got that feeling that Charles Leclerc spent most of his tyres getting onto the back of George Russell. Prez Radio.
Yeah, we do have Norris behind. Okay, flashing blues at present. Let's be sensible where we let him through. Go on, keep pushing.
So, following on from our blue flag conversation, that was Perez's radio. Be sensible, but let's keep pushing. Let's let him through and let's manage that pace as quick as possible. I always remember, I think it was Ruth Buscombe, the former strategist for the Alfa Romeo Sauber team, who said Marcus Ericsson was always absolutely fantastic at getting out of the way and managing blue flags and losing very little time. It's a fine skill for some drivers, but Perez, well, he won't be really wanting that skill. He will be hoping and should have been up fighting for podium places where his teammate Max Verstappen is, but right now he's looking at getting lapped by our race leader and fighting with the Haas of Nico Hulkenberg. It's not gone the way. Indeed, Lando Norris does indeed get past, first of all, Franco Colapinto, and actually has to run deep into the corner. When doing so, Norris has now, he's right on the back of Sergio Perez, so Perez will need to move out of the way as per the blue flag rules.
And Lando Norris actually left the circuit while overtaking there. I think all 4 wheels would, I mean, for me, he was overtaking a lapped car, so I hope that there's no investigation there, but...
You know what, he's already lost a bunch of time anyway, because it's nearly down to 23 seconds. It was almost at 30 seconds, the gap between Norris and Verstappen.
Yeah, there was no...
He's got the gap to manage it.
There was no clear and obvious, advantage there.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, that's Lando Norris trying to thread his way through the field. He has got to the margin to take it steady. A man who doesn't really have the margin to take it steady is George Russell, as Charles Leclerc is hounding him for 4th place out through turn 4, slightly uphill, up through the gears before you slam on the brakes, slightly downhill, right-hander into the next long straight where the DRS zone beckons, down Raffles Boulevard through the right-hand kink of turn 6, sparks flying, emphasised by the lights that illuminate this track. Leclerc all over the back of Russell, not close enough to try and dart down the inside, but does he have a little look into the right-hander of turn 8? Russell left the door slightly ajar, but Leclerc bailed out at the last minute.
Yeah, just trying to put George Russell under a load of pressure, make him look in his mirrors, try and make him make a mistake.
Norris still stuck behind Sergio Perez, but I think Perez has just moved out of the way, according to the driver tracker. Over the Anderson Bridge, into the left-hander of turn 13 for Russell and Leclerc. Leclerc again closing up through braking, but Russell is driving a superb race so far, keeping that Ferrari at bay. But is the move coming? We go into the right-hander of 14, into the next DRS zone. Not the best exit, though, for Charles Leclerc. Not right up behind the Mercedes. Will he dive late on the brakes? No, not through the right-hander of 16. They'll have to do it again on the next lap.
No, he looked very, very close, didn't he, on the entry to 14, but then had poor traction on the way out. He's got to find a way. I think that getting close into 14 and then sorting the traction out of the corner is probably his best bet.
Kevin Magnussen is told to box to retire the car, as Ricciardo also comes into the pits. I wonder if that is perhaps a double retirement there. Magnussen wheeled back into the garage to end his day after not racing at all in Baku, replaced by Oliver Behrman because Magnussen notched up 12 penalty points, but he's back for the rest of the season now. Okay. The battle continues to brew. Nothing doing down into turn 7 between Russell and Leclerc. Leclerc still behind Russell, 4th and 5th.
I think this is a sign from RB. I think that Ricciardo's been sent out on another set of softs. His last lap of Formula 1 racing, go and set the fastest lap. That's my personal view on that, because why would you come out again when you're already last on another set of softs?
Very good point. We shall see. Kylie Minogue will wait with the checkered flag. We're on lap 61 of 62. Talk of Australians. Norris leads 22.7 seconds the gap. It's been a sublime drive for Lando Norris ahead of Max Verstappen. Piastri is holding firm in 3rd, but this is going to go perhaps right to the line for George Russell in 4th, holding Charles Leclerc at bay. The Ferrari, who started down in 9th, trying to recover after a disaster Saturday.
They have a very good traction again.
That's Leclerc saying they have very good traction again, like you were alluding to, Sam. The Ferrari just not strong enough out of the corners.
No, I think he's burnt most of the goodness of his tyres up in catching Hamilton, then catching George Russell. He's close, but whether or not he can get a sniff down the inside of George Russell, he's only got a lap and 3/4 now to do it, and I don't think that Ferrari's got good enough traction in order to get alongside George Russell.
Ferrari are battling in the Constructors' Championship. They're 3rd at the moment coming into this weekend. They need to score big points. They do have the chance to close the gap to Red Bull and McLaren, but after a disaster qualifying, Sainz starting in 10th, having crashed out in Q3, he's made his way up to 7th and isn't really threatening Hamilton ahead. Charles Leclerc has made his way up into 5th and is indeed threatening George Russell for 4th, but the Mercedes just with slightly better traction, although Russell running very wide out of the final corner, bumping over the curb, unsettling that Mercedes car as the sparks fly. But, well, he's running out of places to do it over the Anderson Bridge into the left-hander of 13 again. Here's another chance for Charles Leclerc to try and find his way through. Will it be a last lap dash to the flag for Charles Leclerc? No, not through the right-hander of 14. Can he set it up nicely, though? This is the 4th DRS zone through the left-hand kick of turn 15 down towards the braking zone. The right-hander of turn 16, but he's running out of corners to do so. But Lando Norris is currently absolutely weaving his way through the field. It's been a dominant display so far for the McLaren man. He's navigating the traffic well. They will have one more lap to do it for Russell and Leclerc. He can't do it on this lap as they start the final lap. Lando Norris already on the final lap.
Such is the dominance of Lando Norris today. He's not far away from lapping his old friend Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari. That is how dominant this driver's been.
That is a tough day at the office for Ferrari and Carlos Sainz. Can Leclerc make their day any better? But can you get any better for Lando Norris, who weaves his way through the final couple of corners? He is closing the gap to Max Verstappen in the Drivers' Championship. It has been utter dominance for Lando Norris, who wins the Singapore Grand Prix, closes the gap to Verstappen in the Drivers' Championship, and under the lights, the fireworks explode for McLaren and Norris, and Max Verstappen and Red Bull could do nothing to stop it. Over 20 seconds separating the Dutchman from his rival, who takes the flag in 2nd, but that will be damage presidential invitation for Red Bull and Verstappen, who came into this track thinking they would be on the back foot. That is a recovery and a half, and McLaren will extend their championship lead in the constructors because a recovery drive from 5th up into the final podium spot. Oscar Piastri secures 3rd and makes it a McLaren 1-3. But who will get 4th place? The corners have run out. There is no more time for Charles Leclerc to find a way through. 2 more corners to go, but he's already fallen back. 4th place will go the way of Mercedes and Russell. Leclerc will have to settle for 5th ahead of Hamilton. Sainz 7th with Alonso 8th, Hülkenberg 9th, and Sergio Perez rounding out the top 10. And it will not be the Grand Slam though for Lando Norris. He had pole, he took the win, he had the fastest lap.
Well, mate, good job.
Yeah, lovely job. Amazing car weekend. Thank you very much, everyone. One of many more. Let's keep pushing.
He had the fastest lap, but in the final lap, and is it a fond farewell for Daniel Ricciardo, who finished 18th and last of the runners, but was sent out on the soft tyre and secured the fastest lap. He won't get any points for it because he's outside of the top 10. He takes it away from Norris, but is that the last we'll see of Daniel Ricciardo? We shall see. 2nd place went the way of Max Verstappen, the Dutchman, getting good points on the board, but he did not have an answer to Lando Norris today.
Nobody did. What a sublime drive from the young Brit, Lando Norris. I mean, Max Verstappen radio?
Yeah, well done, Max. You got every ounce of performance out of that today. So, 8 points down to Lando. So you've driven a very strong weekend.
And your old pal Daniel picked up a fastest lap at the end as well, man.
Thank you, Daniel.
Teamwork making the dream work, perhaps, as well.
Well, the junior team helping the senior team, absolutely. I mean, there's 2 ways that you could look at that. Them helping Red Bull or Daniel's final hurrah, getting a fastest lap. I don't know which one that is, but Lando Norris, stunning drive, had the gap up to 30 seconds at one point and then stroked it home. Scared me a couple of times though, Harry, I'm not going to lie. He had me on the edge of my seat.
I think he scared us all, didn't we? But Lando Norris then wins the Singapore Grand Prix ahead of Verstappen, Oscar Piastri 3rd, Russell, Leclerc the top 5, Hamilton was 6th ahead of Sainz, Alonso, Hülkenberg with 2 crucial points for 9th, Sergio Perez only 10th, Colapinto just outside in 11th ahead of Tsunoda, Ocon, Stroll, Joe the top 15, Bottas and Gasly, Ricciardo 18th and last.
Yes, let's go. P3, well done, mate, really good.
Thank you. Well done on the strategy. Worked out nice. And enjoy a little break.
With 2 retirements at the end, Kevin Magnussen and Alex Albon did not finish that race, which, Rosanna, well, a bit of a slow burn, but it got us all on the edge of our seats by the end.
Yeah, you're right. It took a while to get going. There's a bit of the atmosphere for you. It's very hot down here because everybody is cramming in to get close to the celebrations. The McLaren mechanics were running down the pit lane, moving photographers out of their way so that they could get to the front row, so that they could be there for Lando Norris to embrace them. And that is exactly what he's doing. They are patting his race helmet. They are cheering, hands in the air, clapping in the air. He's still got his helmet on. Looks a little bit sweaty, I have to say. A bit of condensation inside the visor. He's shaking hands with lots of them. It is just a sea of papaya orange down here. And the fireworks have just stopped. But wow, they absolutely illuminate the sky. The circuit's incredible as it is, lit up by all the lights around the Marina Bay Street circuit. Oh, a few more fireworks just finishing off the pack, I'm sure. What a moment. And now Oscar Piastri is coming over to celebrate with the mechanics as well. High fives all round. He's shaking hands with them and they're cheering. Yeah, that's for Oscar Piastri, a great drive. I think making up for a tricky qualifying session yesterday where he made that mistake and probably should have started either alongside his teammate on the front row or from P3. So Lando Norris is just heading over to the little lectern. He's got his cap there ready, taking off his helmet, taking off the hands device and the balaclava, just wiping his eyes. This is a difficult, tough race for the drivers. So hot. Gives his hair a bit of a shake. We heard earlier in the weekend that he'd given up on his hair this weekend. again because of the humidity. I think we all have as well. He's just putting his watch on and he's going to get ready for the interviews. But so many people down here. The pit lane is absolutely charged with people. I can see people as far as the eye can see, all the way down, all wanting to be part of the podium celebrations. Lando Norris is actually pouring water down the back of his race suit. That is how hot it was. Max Verstappen joins him. He's getting himself ready as well. You can smell the fireworks in the air. Wow, that's an amazing moment. And I think they are just recharging and refueling. A bit of water for Lando Norris out down the front of the race oval as well. It's going to take a lot to cool them down. We know that they jump in ice baths after sessions as well. Oscar Piastri now bringing his helmet over, unzipping his race suit, just to let a little bit of air in, and all three drivers just taking their time to get ready. Lando congratulates one of his mechanics there up on the raised screen platform. It's a digital display. It's rather interesting. And I think we're going to hear from the top three drivers very shortly, Harry, aren't we?
Certainly can, as Lando Norris makes his way over to some of his final team engineers and mechanics, gives them all a well-earned hug, and we'll hear from our race winner and indeed our top three in just a few moments' time. But a hot and always humid race in Singapore. It is intense. The walls come oh so close, and for Lando Norris, well, certainly touching the walls at times too, and still managing to keep it under control with some good positive affirmations on his team radio, Sam.
I just can't believe the improvement that McLaren have seen in the last 18 months. I mean, the beginning of 2023, they were last, Harry. They were absolutely last. And even, there were times last year where Max Verstappen would be 30 seconds ahead of everybody else. McLaren would be the next best car. So now for McLaren to be 30 seconds ahead, incredible.
Let's hear from third place man Oscar Piastri talking to David Coulthard.
Oscar, after what was challenging qualifying, a really feisty race, some great overtakes and a well-deserved podium. Congratulations. Put us in the cockpit. How was it?
Warm is how it was. No, it was a good race, a good recovery from qualifying yesterday. It wasn't my greatest afternoon yesterday, so to get back to the podium is a great result. I feel like we had a really quick car underneath us and a good strategy to get past the Mercedes. So big thank you to the team. Clearly the car was exceptional this weekend, and some great points for the whole team.
We saw your teammate having a couple of brushes with the walls. I didn't see any for you, but did you have any particular standout moments of difficulty during that race?
No, I think I kept it off him this time. I don't think I hit anything. It was a bit close with George at turn one, but no, once I got into third, I had a massive gap to try and close up, so I didn't want to take too many risks. But I feel like I've brushed enough walls in the last 2 weeks, so hopefully the mechanics don't have to change too many bits before next race.
Okay, well, Oscar, well done. Enjoy the podium celebration.
Thank you.
And then Oscar Piastri, followed by Max Verstappen.
And now
Hello, I'm Nihal Arthanaika. Headliners. We go deep with the biggest names in entertainment, culture and the arts. And I'm not trying to boast here, but look, it is what it is. Huge guest, the comedian's comedian, Stuart Lee.
I was going to be a stand-up comedian, but I would be different to the others because I would only tell the truth.
Headliners with Nihal Arthanaika. Listen on BBC Sounds.
To do the best I could, trying to manage my own pace to the end. I think the first stint was a bit difficult for us, quite a bit of tire degradation. The second stint was a bit better. I was a bit more comfortable as well. So that's, I think on a weekend where we knew that we were going to struggle to be P2 is a good achievement. Of course, we're not happy with second. Now we just have to try and improve more and more, and that's what we'll try to do.
With Daniel Ricciardo getting the fastest lap right at the end, that meant that the point swing is now 52 points where it could have been 51. It's being ebbed away, your championship lead.
Yeah, it is, but this also can change very quickly again, so we just need to keep on trying, keep to of course at one point try to overturn it a bit, not always finishing behind, but we'll see how that goes.
And physically we can see the sweat on your brow. I presume you're soaked through. Just how tough was that race?
It's always tough around here, warm, and a very long race in general. So I'm looking forward to a bit of rest.
Okay, well, enjoy that and enjoy the podium.
Second place man, Max Verstappen.
And finally, our race winner in what looked like a dominant victory. Lando, congratulations.
Thank you. It was an amazing race. A few too many close calls. I had a couple little moments in the middle, but was well controlled, I think, otherwise. And the car was mega, so I could push. We were flying the whole race, and at the end could just chill. So it was a nice race, still tough. I'm a bit out of breath, but a very fun one.
But you definitely earned your money today. The gap you had, though, did put our hearts in our mouths when we saw you have 2 brushes with the wall, an overshoot in one of the corners where you just touched the front wing, and then you had a little tap as well of the barrier. Did you need to be pushing that hard given the gap that you had?
It's not that you're necessarily over pushing. Sometimes it can be that you're just chilling too much. Maybe it's a bit of both. I don't know what it is, but it's tricky. It was still tough out there. Easy to lock the tires like I did, so I still pushed. I didn't want to have a 1 second lead. I wanted to have the biggest lead possible. So it was good fun. Maximum points. Nice to have Oscar here too on the podium. He drove well today, so a good day for the team also.
So your 3rd victory in Formula 1. Physically, your toughest?
Similar to Qatar last year, but I wasn't taking it easy. I could have taken it a lot more easy. So a little dizzy at the minute, but all good.
All good. Oh, well, Lando, it's fantastic victory. I think I might have a solution if you're feeling dizzy.
Oh, no.
Oh, well,
you feeling better?
David Coulthard was actually pouring water over Lando Norris there.
Congratulations, Lando. Enjoy the podium.
There we go. And it smiles all around and a handshake from Lando Norris, your winner in Singapore, to the former Formula 1 driver David Coulthard. And while those interviews were going on, Andrea Stella, the team principal of McLaren, was going around shaking the hands of the mechanics who were leaning over the fence saying thank you and well done. And Zach Brown, the CEO of McLaren, there as well now, having a word with Lando. So the 3 of them having a laugh. Oh, it's always such fun when you're winning. So Lando Norris winning in Singapore, then closing the gap between himself and Max Verstappen. The lead is now 331 for Max Verstappen to Lando Norris's 279 points. So still a little bit of work for Lando Norris and McLaren to do to close that gap. My thanks to Sam Bird, McLaren Formula E driver, who's been with us this weekend, and Harry Benjamin, our lead commentator, for talking us through the Singapore Grand Prix. Formula 1 takes a bit of a break now. We've got a few weekends off, but we will be back in action for the US Grand Prix in Austin, Texas. That's on the 20th of October. But don't forget to check out the Checkered Flag podcast. We'll be recording that very shortly to dissect and analyse everything that we've seen here under the lights in Singapore. I hope you enjoyed the Grand Prix. Wow, time to take a little bit of a breather. It's rather hot and humid down here. This has been an IMG for production for BBC Radio 5 Live.